Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to the program. It's the Jeff Gerstmann Show. Today is July 15th. The Ides of July, I think is what they call that. Beware the... look out. Look out. Look out, it's the middle of July. Is everyone's favorite slogan to say, and you can only say it today. Right now, here on the Jeff Gerstmann Show. My name is Jeff Gerstmann. I'm your host this week. We're going to go through the world of video games on this summer day. We're kind of still sitting in the middle of the summer here where it's, like there's a light bit of lull here. We're starting to hear little bits and pieces about plans for Gamescom and Comic-Con, I suppose, ever so, kind of a little bit here, a little bit of Comic-Con news. Though I don't know that Comic-Con... I don't think Comic-Con will matter to video games the same way it did a decade ago ever again. I don't think that's coming back the same way. We'll see, the relevant games that are related to comic books. Sometimes they will, they're going to trot some of that stuff out there, but it felt like there was a push to try to, make Comic-Con more and more and more and more of a game thing, as this kind of midpoint between hey, your game wasn't ready for E3, but you want to show it before Gamescom because the American press is somewhere, so bring it to Comic-Con. But it's not really. Seems like that really didn't happen. I was having a conversation with a couple of people about PAX. And the kind of relevance of PAX in a similar sense. I mean, PAX is a very different thing. It's I don't go to PAX to see upcoming video games. I don't go to PAX to take a bunch of appointments and see a bunch of stuff. Like that was never the goal to going to something like that. But PAX used to be good for a few things, especially if you didn't go to Gamescom. All those same publishers or a subset of those publishers would be like, oh yeah, we have the same build at PAX if you just want to see it there. And now like those publishers are not necessarily going to PAX in the first place. Like it seems like some of the bigger publisher booths are kind of gone from that show, from just kind of a glancing at the exhibitor list over these past few years here. And so that's sort of a different thing as well. I really had a lot of fun at PAX over the years, and there's definitely a part of me that would love to go again. But it's I don't know, the justification for it seems weirder and weirder every year as and I'm getting more and more emails from people going like, are you going to PAX and or Gamescom? Because we're representing some clients there that are we'll hit you up for appointments if you want to see this stuff or whatever. And the impression I get from the few people that I've kind of asked about it a little bit is like, yeah, it's not none of these things are what they used to be, which makes sense. A big chunks of the world are not what they used to be. And that's just how it's going to go. But I don't know. I miss, I think a lot of the, honestly, I think I've said it before, but my main desire to go to PAX is to just is to do the wrestling thing, and the overwhelming majority of people that used to do that don't go either. So it's sort of a different thing now. And so that's kind of, I mean, you could rebuild it, but you'd have to find an entirely new crew of people to do it and all that other stuff. And, that whole thing's kind of I don't know, a lost cause. I have this closet full of tracksuits and nowhere to wear them. It's disappointing. When we take a break, we'll come back. We'll talk about a couple of video games, and then and then surprise more video games. And I don't know, maybe there'll be some wrestling in the middle there. You never know. You really never know. Getting a business off the ground can be tricky because, there's no one else around. So if you don't do it, it doesn't get done. You need to find smart partners to work with when you get things up and running, or, you're looking to expand into different territories or areas or whatever. If you're looking to expand in the area of selling stuff online, that partner you're looking for is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world. They handle like 10% of all e-commerce in the US. That includes household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands that are just getting started. You can use their design studio. They've got hundreds of ready-to-use templates. So Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store to match your brand's style. And you can accelerate your content creation. They've got tools that'll write product descriptions and handle some stuff for you around the edges if you're just looking to get it out there and get the word out too. You can easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. So if you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Jeff. Go to shopify.com/Jeff, shopify.com/Jeff. Today is Destiny 2 Day. Happy Destiny 2 update/expansion whatever day to those who celebrate. I want to check out the new. I don't know anything about the new Destiny 2 stuff, but if you tell me there's new Destiny 2 stuff, I'm always going to be like, I should give that a look. And every time I check back in on it, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, whether I just kind of looked back in on it, kind of at random, but every time I feel further away from whatever Destiny 2 is. I do have it installed though, and I think the dude, it was 100 gigabytes on Steam. Like, I loaded up Steam this morning, as I do every morning when I turn on the computer, and I look at Steam and I go, there's a store. And I see what updates are available, and it was like, yeah, there's a Destiny 2 update. It's 100 gigabytes. It just seems like a lot. I don't know. This seems like a lot for an expansion. Who cares? What I'm saying is it must be a very good expansion. We should get back into that. Like, well, it's 100 gigs, so, you know, people would get all weird about, not very often, but like there was a time when people would be weird about like the install sizes of Xbox Live Arcade games, and they were like, well, it's only this many, it's barely a gig. It was a really weird moment in time. It was just like, but I guess like as part of that was coupled with the you bought DLC, you bought quote DLC, but it was like 108K download file because it was just a key that was unlocking something that was you had already downloaded, and people were like, that's on disc DLC and this is the end of the world. We're all going to die because of these 108K files. Don't you understand? And like, yeah, but also a lot of these games are online games. And so you need to have that content on your disc either way, because people who bought Ermac will sometimes use Ermac against you. And so you're going to need that content no matter what. And so, you know, it's life in the big city, baby. Yeah, I don't know. The Destiny 2 thing, there were some quotes going around from people on the Destiny 2 team saying like, oh yeah, you know, we understand that the game's, the onboarding is really rough for new players. And you're like, yeah, you think? After all these years of that game being like in some kind of state of churn of just like, it's just always something, you're always removing something from the game and putting something else in the game, and I don't know. I still maintain that, especially after a decade, I wonder, like, who is the more likely person to get into Destiny 2? Like, should they, it feels like a waste of time to try to rebuild the front of that game in an attempt to, like, attract brand new players. when instead, wouldn't the more likely the win back campaign, not the campaign for the hot N64 game win back, but to get back the existing players that you have lost over the years, wouldn't you be better off trying to build something to get people back into Destiny 2 and ease them back into the thing that they at some point played and maybe even liked and or loved? I would think that the numbers would be on that, especially after a decade of that churn, of losing those players and everything, that you would have a better, a better attempt to reach out to the lapsed player and figure out how to get them back into the game. Just feels like a more sensible, I don't know, after all these years, right? Than like that brand new user acquisition. Or unless you're just like, well, there are 14-year-olds who were like 4 when our game shipped, and so, maybe like they're just like, there are plenty of people aging into Destiny 2 every single day. I don't know what's the calculus there on the business end. It's something that all of these games have to like consider, right? Especially if they make it, right? If they last long enough to have this very kind of unique problem, of like, how do you actually get new people into this game? Because that's that's user acquisition and paying for user acquisition and everything. Like, that's how all these free to play mobile games work. And it's increasingly on the, not that Destiny 2 is purely free to play, of course, but it is in the same, they're running a very similar racket over there. And so I'm sure that there are plenty of things to be gleaned from the rest of that world or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It's called Destiny 2: The Edge of Fate. It is part of the Year of Prophecy, which will include, there's a new campaign, so that and a new raid that will come with the Edge of Fate. And yeah, I don't know. There's another campaign called Renegades that's due later this year, and that is the one that is all like Star Wars themed or whatever. So, everything has to cross over with everything eventually, right? That's where the real money is, baby. So let my Titan look like a robot Luke Skywalker. Is that what they're doing? I assume that's what they're doing. I don't know what the actual content is for the Star Wars thing, but I'm a sucker, like at the end of the day, this is on me, right? Like I'm going to do this again, because my time with Destiny 2, when it was good, or rather when I was enjoying it, I value that time. I had a lot of really great times with Destiny 2. I would love to get back into it. It's nice to have a nice shooter and with a campaign and like all that other stuff, and I would be into it if it was good and like accessible or whatever. But I feel like every time I launch it, there is that feeling of just like, I don't know what the fuck when I launched Destiny 2, the issue becomes, I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at anymore, and I was never the biggest Destiny lore guy. I don't give a shit about I don't even know the names to name drop them here. Any of these characters, whatever they are called. Like, I know who the Drifter is. He was in the last cutscene I watched, and I was like, oh, weird. He's out here doing stuff, huh? Okay. But there were like exciting, good-looking cutscenes and like bad guys that were fucking grim. But like ultimately, I guess none of that stuff was very lasting, because none of that stuff's in the game anymore. Also, that's kind of the other bit of like, yeah, there's some really cool stuff. It might be neat to go replay the Destiny 2. No, you can't do. Okay, well, all right, cool. There were some neat-looking missions in there, and like a story that felt like it mattered and was cohesive across that initial campaign that they launched with. And now that's like long gone. That's out of the game by and it has been for years, right? They vaulted it, which I assume means if you can finish the Vault of Glass fast enough, it will let you play the campaign. I don't know. And Bowles asked, "Did you ever finish the final shape?" No, it's a trapezoid though, right? Like you get to the end of it and it's just like, check it out, it's a trapezoid. But no, I didn't finish it myself, but I forget how far I got in the final shape. Dude, which one was the final shape? I like it. Yeah, like all of that stuff just runs together so much these days. And I'm sure if you're like plugged into it and you are still like, if you've convinced yourself that you still love Destiny 2 and you're just going to keep going, that, you know, like there is a sensible through line to some of that. I have to imagine that that's the case, right? Maybe that's not true. I don't know. But like, you know, at some point, all of the stuff runs together. They're not bad names, and like there are missions and things in there that you're like, oh, there's some neat stuff in here. You encounter some neat things. There's some neat gameplay, some bespoke action between the samey season rollouts that they've done and whatever else. But like, dude, all these years later, you want to ask me anything about any of the, like a Vault of Glass? There you go. I can pull that. Vault of Glass was fun. I enjoyed the raids that I did. You know, I'm not in a position to probably ever do a raid ever again because of the way they make that game. But you know, I enjoyed those raids. But all of the the final shape I think is a really good name. This one is The Edge of Fate, which I think is not a great name. Not nearly as good as The Final Shape. I think we can all agree. Renegades, also not a great name, but that's something that, like, if the campaign is truly renegade-like in nature, and you're like, I'm doing some weird shit when we're out here fucking shit up, like, you know, then maybe Renegades ends up being a good name for a thing. Access Kepler's secrets. Hidden deep within the reef, a new destination awaits, the mysterious planetoid of Kepler. Explore a lost human settlement and forgotten fallen houses and encounter new characters, all affected by a mysterious anomaly that has twisted the destination into something menacing. All right. I would take a look at that. That seems like a thing that I would play and go, huh? But I don't know. The Final Shape was where they put in the weird plant thing, right? Where you're using vines and shooting vines at people. None of that. None of that was great. That was where I fell off for the first time. I was like, these new abilities are terrible. There was one before it that was not the Final Shape. All right, okay. Well, what are you gonna do? What am I gonna do? I'm gonna look at Destiny 2 for a minimum of 90 minutes, and if that 90 minutes is good, I will perhaps invest another 90 minutes. But man, I am ready to not play Destiny 2 at the drop of a hat on that stuff. So yeah, that's I've got a very short fuse for Destiny 2 these days because I have like punched out of it like 4 or 5 different times over the years at things that are just like, this is dumb. When you got the vines, that was the moment where I was like, this is really stupid. Like these abilities are awful. Like this is, I don't like this at all. I don't like anything about this. Why am I playing this game? What am I doing with my life? Like the questions start to stack up, right? Like a lot of these games, you know, especially these games that are constantly going under updates and you know, like obviously Destiny 2 has been around for a decade or more, but I think any kind of servicey sort of game, there's that momentum. It's like momentum mixed with entropy or something where you're just like, well, I'm going to keep playing this because this is what I play. But like once you fall out of it once, I think there is constantly I'm back on, I'm back out, I'm back on, I'm back out. And with Destiny 2, I feel like I'm looking for a way back in and not ever finding it. You know, not ever finding anything that like truly makes me go, oh dude, I'm going to keep playing this. It's more like I'm going to look at this stuff and go, yeah, this game still plays pretty good. This shooting is still all right. But I have no idea what I'm doing, and I think I'm doing content from 4 expansions ago, and what the fuck even is this? And, am I going to be able to see feet in this game or not? That's my question, Bungie. No. So yeah, that Destiny 2 thing's out today. I will probably play a little bit of that later tonight. I don't know. Atari is a strange company. They have been making some really kind of out there merchandise. Atari's just weird overall now, right? I mean, I don't know. Like they own Digital Eclipse, and so all of the cool Digital Eclipse stuff now has the Atari name on it, which is good for Atari. There are now like more good games with the Atari logo on it. Probably a pretty smart pickup on Atari's part there, but they've gotten into a lot of weird. Like they're exploring their catalog in very interesting ways. And I don't know that it's always good, but it's been very cool to see. They're making t-shirts with Bounty Bob on them. They're doing some kind of like limited, like, hey, for the summer, we're doing summer themed shirts, and I don't know, it's like they bill it as like a, it's Bounty Bob's hardware store, which he's a miner. He was never really a hardware guy, but in the game they were never made he was going to be a firefighter anyway. So Bounty Bob, much like Mario went from carpenter to plumber, I think Bounty Bob could have gone from from miner / Yukon Johan apprehender to running a hardware store or whatever. But there's something so crazy to me, even as they've delved into just like so much weird merchandise, and and they've tapped into some of the weird intellectual property that is just like forgotten to time, right? Some of the weird stuff and some of it's stuff that they've acquired. They picked up the rights to the Intellivision stuff and immediately started selling, I think, literally an Intellivision speaker hat. But they started selling some merchandise with the Intellivision logos on it and stuff. After they picked it up from they ended the hostage situation that the Intellivision IP has been in for the last several years, and immediately started selling merchandise as soon as they got it out of their filthy hands. Like, no. Even Atari, this company that has been up and down and on the blockchain, off the blockchain, all this other, we were going to make hotels. Like, even that is still somehow a much better home for Intellivision than where it was before. I ordered the Bounty Bob t-shirt, and they made a can, like they made a koozie, which is, I don't know, that's not a weird word to say, with Bounty Bob on it. And I think the very idea that I guess I didn't realize that they had like acquired the rights to Bounty Bob, to Miner 2049er. Miner 2049er appeared in the it wasn't in the Atari 50 set. It was in the it was on the like Atari 400 mini that they sold. I think is where that game showed up again. But they must have, I wonder if they acquired the rights to the entire Big Five software library, which is not a lot beyond Miner 2049er and Bounty Bob Strikes Back. You get some like Space Invaders clones for like the TI or something, I think, along with that. And maybe you get the firefighting, whatever's left of the, if there was a prototype of that firefighting game, maybe they've got it somewhere in a vault somewhere. But like they're selling merchandise for it, and it's like that again. That I've talked about it before, but like that game, the idea of Miner 2049er still feels so ultra obscure. For whatever reason, games that were popular on the Atari home computers, which were compatible basically, like the same basic hardware as an Atari 5200, if you're familiar. But the Atari 800, the 1200 XL, whatever, like that kind of line of home computers. I had them. I had one. I had a 400, then I had an 800, and it felt like no one had that shit ever again. And no one talked about it. Oftentimes, it felt like I was the only person who would ever heard of any of those games that appeared on that platform. And plenty of them, plenty of those games made it to the Commodore and some of these other places, but like, in a lot of cases, the Atari version was the better version of the game, or in some cases, the original version of the game, and the C64 would get a port, and it was fine, but often kind of not the not the ideal version of the game as far as I was concerned. But like that stuff always just felt incredibly obscure. And after it went away, when Atari got into the ST and some of the other stuff they did before the Jag and the Lynx and the downfall of Atari, or the ninth different downfall of Atari, whatever you want to call it. It just felt like that thing got lost to time, and you would run into other people here and there who knew, and you could have like these kind of knowing glances or knowing conversations about like, yeah, that fucking thing, this is fucking good fucking games on those fucking, and that almost never happened. A limited number of people that I've encountered over the years had like good knowledge of that era of Atari computers and Atari games, and I believe one of them is now the chief creative officer for Atari. So good good on him. Yeah, so I don't know, the very idea that they were going to make, that they are making Bounty Bob merchandise in 2025, like it just feels impossible to me. Like the same way it felt when they were reissuing the game on one of the, on the device and kind of, and they put it into, it's in Atari 50, right? Anyway, the very idea that another human being or like an organization that is selling something commercially was like, by the way, yes, we're aware that Miner 2049er exists and all that. Like it was just fucking mind blowing to me. And this was like, this email came into me yesterday, like from the public mailing list of like, hey man, we're selling shirts. And I just fucking stared at it. Like, I don't think it's an amazing t-shirt. It's like a pretty good t-shirt. I would rather have one that looks more like Bounty Bob. Here, if you're watching the video version, I'm going to grab. Like Bounty Bob, he's got a fucking big old crazy beard. Like if they had just put the box art to Miner 2049er on a shirt or some variant that looked a little bit more like that, I think I would have been pretty stoked. Whatever, I am pretty stoked. Like it's not the t-shirt, the art of Bounty Bob is not the best. Like I look at it and go like, this is all right. But god damn it, I had to purchase that. I was like, I need to own this. I have to own this. I think canned koozies are gross, but I was like, well, I need to get one of these. And I'm already ordering the shirt, so I might as well get one. They're selling hats too, but the hats just say like Bob's Hardware on them, which like that's not, I don't know, what is that? No one's into, that's not, there's nothing to that. And they got a new Centipede shirt up and stuff like that. And I don't know, man. There's a lot of, I need to figure out a good way to make bootleg t-shirts and just like whatever Redbubble, or even the Redbubble shirts are always so fucking shitty. I need to figure out a t-shirt manufacturer that doesn't fucking look at what you upload and go like, that's not yours, that will just sell me one, so that I can, because I just want to upload marquee art and like cut out flyer art from arcade games and print up more. Cause I got my Zaxxon shirt and a few other, I had a really good Gorf shirt for a lot of years. and I need a new one. And I need some more Mr. Do shirts. But there are very few. I don't think there are any other bootleg Mr. I think I already own all of the bootleg Mr. Do shirts out there. So unfortunately, this is separate from like I think it would be cool to start an actual proper merchandise business and sell things along. In fact, I have a script now. And I have some ideas for actual things that I would like sell or whatever. But like, this is more like, what if I had a Super Zaxxon t-shirt? And that would be cool. But I just, I I'm really blown away. I'm sure that they will sell tens of these t-shirts. They're really going to burn up the charts here. Everyone loves Bounty Bob. Whatever. I love Bounty Bob. I guess that's the sort of thing, is like, there's not a ton of people that know, but every single person who does know will go, well, shit, I got to buy that. And maybe they make it up on the back end in some kind of limited edition volume or something. Crazy. It's just fucking crazy. Speaking of Atari, I also played some Missile Command Delta. Let's take another break. We'll come back. We'll talk about a turn-based tactical game. It's based on loosely based on Missile Command. What? Baseball season's in full swing, but let's be honest here. Are you wearing a hat to support your favorite team, or because you're not happy with where your hair is at? Hey, Hims offers access to a range of prescription treatments that are a home run for hair regrowth, so you can see big league results by the time your team is in the playoffs. That's right, Hims offers convenient access to a range of prescription hair loss treatments with ingredients that work, including chewables, oral medications, serums, and sprays. These are doctor-trusted, clinically proven ingredients like finasteride and minoxidil, which can stop hair loss and regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. And hey, you can get started from the comfort of your own home. You just fill out an intake form, and a medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you. If you're prescribed, your treatment is sent directly to you for free. So it's all done online. Getting started has never been more convenient. It's not an insurance thing. You don't need it. One low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care, and treatment options start at just $35 per month. Hims has helped hundreds of thousands of men get their confidence back with a visibly thicker and fuller hair. If you want to be on that team, here's how. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/Jeff. That's HIMS.com/Jeff. For personalized hair loss treatment options, hims.com/Jeff. Individual results may vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription required. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information. Missile Command Delta has been out for a little bit now. I finally sat down and played some of it on Steam, on the PC here. It was just, the description of it was, I found to be very off-putting. As someone who used to own a Missile Command cabinet, as someone who wrote the foreword to a book about Missile Command, I had some misgivings at the idea of like, hey, we made this turn-based tactical Missile Command game that is kind of a card game a little bit, and I was like, okay, you've checked too many boxes on the modern thing for me, because Missile Command originally is a trackball game. You're rolling the trackball around to move a cursor around, like a mouse cursor kind of thing. You have 3 buttons that launch missiles from 3 different missile bases. Missiles are dropping down out of the sky to hit your cities, and you are hitting buttons to shoot missiles back up and intercept them. ICBMs and all that stuff. At the end is this horrifying explosion, where it's a big, filling the screen, and it says the end, because the entire world has been destroyed in a nuclear holocaust. It's a bad time. Losing a Missile Command, a bad time. It's a creepy game in its day. Missile Command Delta has a story. It is largely a first-person game. It is about a group of kids that their last weekend of high school, they decide to go camping, and they hike up to a disused Cold War era missile silo, and they sneak in. And then what happens in there is, largely the story of at least the early parts of the story of the game. And so you are encountering the turn-based tactical missile game, which I'll get into detail on that in a little bit, and then also walking around doing like kind of like light puzzle solving, escape room style almost, where it's like, okay, there's a keypad on this door with a bunch of some colors next to it, and you got to look at it and go like, well, how do I figure out what the keypad is? And there are things in the room that you can look at to go like, oh, well, that's a 6 and that's an 8 and that's a 4, and then so we're punching this in, and we're opening this door and getting into the training center and moving on. And so it's like you have an inventory, you're walking around talking to the other kids about what they're doing as they're kind of standing around at different parts of the story. They have not been great characters at this point, but it looks like there are decision points later on in the game where it's like, you don't want to leave the kids behind, or you kind of make sure that they don't, hate you or whatever. So it seems like the story or the dialogue trees will branch in specific ways later on in the game, but I haven't seen that myself. But you're kind of moving around this area, opening things up, and then also playing this missile defense game. And when you sit down at a terminal, like an in-world terminal to play the game, it lets you know, like, okay, there's going to be this many waves of missiles. It kind of shows you, hey, incoming missiles are coming your way, and at the end of this turn, if you don't do anything to stop them, they will be here. And some of the missiles will only be halfway down the screen. Some will go all the way down the screen in one turn and blow up one of your cities. So you're like, okay, I need to make sure that I can take care of that. And you've got missile bases at the bottom of your screen. And you can decide, okay, I want to fire a missile from this missile base, and I want to fire it in this direction. And it's a hex grid. And so you're picking, like, am I launching it straight up or off to the side of this angle or off to the side of this angle? There's no analog anything. It's a grid based. It's a hex grid. It's a hex ass video game with hex grids and everything. You pick different types of missiles off of the list of missile cards you have off to the right, and those missiles will do things like have different ranges. And so if you need one that goes up 6 spaces to intercept a missile, then you have a 6 range missile. You have a 2 range missile. You have 2 stage missiles, so they'll go half the distance in one turn and then the rest of the distance on the next turn. And so you kind of set up your stuff and hit the button, and then the turn unfolds. Your missiles move to where they're going to go, and they explode, and then the enemy missiles come down, ideally crashing into your explosion, which then they explode, which can chain react off to, if another missile hits that explosion. And so you are playing the same basic idea as the original Missile Command, but Missile Command Delta is turn-based. It's very weird. Like, as someone who holds the original Missile Command in some reverence, it's very weird. It's a very weird way to play that game. You're kind of not really playing that game anymore. It is superficially similar to the original Missile Command, in that you've got cities at the bottom of the screen and missile bases, and you've got to handle the incoming stuff. But the rest of it is a puzzle game. It's really like, it's like you can look at turn order and go, okay, I need this missile to be here, and my missiles launch first, and so it needs to be right here, because then missile number 2 is going to come here, and then missile number 3 comes over here. But if missile number 2 comes down here, it will create an explosion cloud that missile number 3 will get caught up in. And so I need to, for the chain reaction to work this way, I need to position my missile right here in this one exact spot. And this is the perfect solution. So it actually has that really good feeling of like, there are situations where you can kind of like slop your way through a level and be really inefficient. And it will let you know you were inefficient. You used more energy than, you launched more missiles than you needed to, or whatever. But like when you ace a level, when you get it all right, you feel really fucking smart. You go like, yeah, I figured that shit out. That was awesome. And that stuff has been more engaging than I initially thought. Like when I first sat down to play it and went through the first stage of like the training, which in the story, they kind of train you on how the machines work a little bit and before kind of sending you into this story thing. I was like, dude, I don't know. This is so far removed from what I know and love about Missile Command. This I don't think so. But as I kind of got deeper into it, and I just the kind of, you know, maybe this is a thing for, maybe this is one of those people of a certain age type thing, but like the very idea of like, man, I would love to be able to walk around an abandoned Cold War era missile base. That would be fucking, so it's like, it's kind of fucking awesome. And the story bits of it are fun, and the writing is pretty well done, to kind of tell this kind of, you know, flashback story of these kids in this missile bunker, intercut with, you know, the training area, which is like, you know, you are training to be a real missile commander and all this other stuff. It's neat. It's a lot neater than I would have initially thought. It really sucked me in more than I thought it would. The puzzles you're doing outside of the missile commanding part of it are not deep, are not like hugely challenging if you've, you know, played any kind of like adventure-y, you know, again, kind of puzzle room, escape room sort of thing. Like you get to a point where you kind of know what to look for, and you see enough things around the initial parts of the bunker that you can't interact with, that you're like, oh, well, clearly I'm going to find a blue key card pretty soon here. And like, okay, yeah, here it is. Okay, now we can go open this door and do this. And oh, well, there's a missing handle on this thing. Clearly I need to go find this and do this. And like, that stuff's engaging enough. I think that stuff is like good enough to help you kind of drive the stuff forward. It's weird though, in a way, because like the two parts of Missile Command Delta are also very different, where like the missile commanding stuff, the hex grid strategy, like that's a very different itch that is being scratched than the walk around in first person and solve puzzles and talk to kids. Like it's a really interesting mix of two pretty different things. But, you know, you eventually get into like the training center of this base, and there are like multiple terminals to sit at and do missile commanding and walk through that. And it's a really, yeah, it is a strange game in every sense of the word. Like, you know, no one part of it is weird on its own, but the idea of just like, hey man, we made another Missile Command game. By the way, it's this turn-based hex grid thing that like, and also you're doing some first person puzzle solving, walking around type stuff. Like, it's so much. You're like, this sounds ridiculous, but it's really neat. It's really neat. So yeah, I would say go check out that trailer, if nothing else, to get a sense for what that thing actually is, and maybe check it out if it strikes your fancy. I have not finished it, so I can't tell you how it ends, or you know. So I don't know. What I mean is, I don't have the answer to the question: can you just sit down and play the Missile Command thing like infinitely? Will it just generate waves for you forever or whatever? Like, so I don't, like, if you want a ton, if you end up really liking that hex grid game, I don't know the answer to the question. Is there a ton of that in there for people who want it? The other part of it does definitely seem like it's going to be, you know, at least somewhat limited in size and scope. But there is a little bit of time skip of like, okay, you're here, and then you are flashing back to life as a kid, and you know, like there's stuff happening in the kind of outside of the tactical game as well. So yeah, I don't have the answer to those questions, but like my initial impressions of it were pretty positive, like, which I was super not expecting. I went into this thing going like this. I see a hex grid, I see cards, like I don't want to fucking do this. Like god damn it! And like, okay, no, this is actually it is at least it starts light enough to get you familiar with what you're actually doing, and you can definitely see spots where like, okay, this is where the tactical game is going to evolve and probably get more difficult, and these are the sorts of things they will throw at you. Like, even in the initial training, you can walk around and look at posters on the walls of like that show you like, here's how everything explodes. If you need to cause a chain reaction, here's how you do it. Like, you know, they really kind of fill in the blanks for you on that stuff, and so you can see it and go like, okay, like I'm not doing that stuff yet, but I bet, you know, another couple hours down the line here, this could get much harder than it initially starts out. And it's neat. Yeah, I don't know. I was again kind of caught off guard because it is such a strange mix of concepts, very few of which have anything to do with the original Missile Command. Because I think like, oh, you're going to make a new Missile Command. Is it just going to be the box art for the home, like the Atari 2600 version brought to life? Because that dude's helmet is extremely fucking sick. Maybe they pull out at the end of the game and you see that you are wearing that helmet. That's what I would do. Because you would finish the game and finally see your character from a third person perspective and go, oh shit, I've been wearing that cool helmet this entire time. This game's the best. In other Delta game news, I reinstalled Delta Force, which is the free-to-play first-person shooter from like Level Infinite. What do they bill that as? That's from Team Jade. That technically came out late last year, so we're 7 months in on Delta Force. And it is I reinstalled this because we've been talking so much about Battlefield lately. And I was like, I like Battlefield. I am not in any kind of Battlefield Labs, Battlefield 6, whatever beta thing. So I'm not playing any other versions of Battlefield. I've seen a lot of footage of that game, and people have been angry. I don't know. Angry, excited, tentatively excited, but also angry. It runs the gamut, I guess, when it comes to Battlefield. But I figured, like, I should reinstall Delta Force. Like, it seems like people are enjoying, or like, maybe enjoying is the wrong word. It seems like people are playing Delta Force. The Steam numbers seemed like they were doing well, and they were getting ready to do their like console rollout or whatever. And so I reinstalled that and played a couple rounds of that. Specifically the Battlefield, like, it's got a control point mode. It's a game where you have tickets and you are depleting tickets by killing players on the attacking team. And, that is, they have made themselves a Battlefield game. You're getting in tanks, you're spawning on your squad, you're spawning in a tank that someone in your squad is already driving. You are getting shot down immediately after you spawn and then waiting for someone to revive you. And then no one ever fucking does. It's a great time. I don't think it's all that said. So it also has like an extraction shooter mode, and there's some kind of campaign in there now that was not in it when I last played it, but I have not looked at that. But like the main mode it is a Battlefield mode, but it's control points in order. And so it's like, but there are multiple modes, but like the mode I ended up with, because I was only Warfare level 1, which is a great thing to call you need to be Warfare level. You need to level up your Warfare if you want to play in the custom event. Like, there's something about them calling it Warfare that cracked me up every time it popped up on screen. But as I was only at Warfare level 1, I could only play the main like multiplayer hopper or whatever, which was this attack and defend mode. Which is you pushing your way across the map. Sometimes there's like you'll hit control point A and take it, and so everything will move forward, and then there'll be 2 at that point. So you have like B1 and B2, and you have to get them both before you can move on to the. And so you're pushing your way across the map while the other team is trying to stop you. It is that type of attack and defend type of deal. It is like superficially very much like Battlefield. Like, it checks every single box with the exception of soul. They have made the most like soulless, like this, like on paper, everything here you look at it and go like, yeah, man, you made a Battlefield game. But it just feels so fucking. I'm having trouble putting my finger on it exactly, like what the problem with it is. And maybe it is that it's, hey, here's this free to play game and they want you to, they want you to buy something. I don't know. I didn't look at the store once the whole time I was playing it. And it looks like it has like, you are leveling up guns. You are unlocking guns and attachments for guns as you're leveling them up. And so it didn't necessarily seem like, I did not initially see areas where like I was being held back because I had not spent money on it or whatever. And that seems to be people's main complaint with it, is some of the stuff they're selling is, maybe a little over the line on the like, gameplay benefit side of things. So I'm not 100% sure about that part of it, but like Delta Force is, it's like, it looks nice. It runs well. You're picking these individual characters that will have certain traits. And so the guy I was had mechanical legs that would help him run faster for brief periods of time. And, you have a full kit of gear. Like I was on top of a mountain and I saw some dudes down below and I pulled out like my anti-personnel grenade launcher and shot 3 grenades and killed 2 guys like from an insane distance, lobbing these things down. And I was like, that was pretty fucking awesome. But like, I don't know, man. It feels that there's this kind of empty feeling about that game. There's something about it that it feels like empty calories. It feels like it just feels like, it feels like it's bad for you somehow. Like there's something about it that just doesn't feel right. In the way that a Battlefield game has. I feel like the best Battlefield games have felt like these rich experiences. Like there's just, there's stuff at every turn, and all of these systems are designed with, there's something congruous about it where you're unlocking this and doing this and doing this. But like this, again, it checks most of those boxes, and the gunplay feels okay. You're shooting the guns, you're hitting the targets. You're like, okay, I can put different attachments on it to raise my handling number so that I can aim down sights faster. I can do this or whatever. Like it's got all that shit in it. It has a lot of it. I might say actually it has too much. Like some of these categories are like, how many different foregrips do I need to fucking look at here on these guns? It was something I appreciated about Call of Duty this year, that they were just like, yeah, you're right. We don't need to put nearly as much shit into this game. But this has like a zillion different things, and you just look at them and go like, I don't think I want any of these. But yeah, it just maybe it's that I don't like the look of the individual characters, and they have you like pick operators. So even within a class, I think that there are different, like even when you kind of pick the assault class, I think there are a handful of different dudes you can be in there that will have like subtle differences or whatever. I didn't buy any dudes, so I can't tell you if the dudes are better or worse. But it just, I don't know, man. It left me. This is what happened the last time I played this game. Is I played a bunch of it for about a day and was like, I don't want to play this anymore, and uninstalled it. I played it for a while last night and was like, okay, yeah. This turns out this is not what I like. Even though I am like felt like I was kind of jonesing for some kind of Battlefield something, this isn't doing it. It should do it because it is that game. You're spawning far back so you can be in a vehicle and you're driving the vehicle up. You're manning the guns on a tank while the driver is shooting the main cannon. There's all of that individual stuff is still there. It's still Battlefield type shit. Like they're very clearly making their own free-to-play Battlefield clone in this particular mode, and then the other modes are other things, right? But none of it. Even though I did not go engage with the store in any way, and so it wasn't like a feeling of like I looked at what you could buy and I was crestfallen, because I never even saw that. I just went in and played some rounds and leveled up and got some stuff, and I have my first gun is leveled all the way up. I don't know, like maybe that was some beta. I don't know. Beta reward, some bullshit. Maybe that's it. It's that like when games have inboxes, and a lot of free-to-play games do this, when games have inboxes where they're constantly giving you shit, and they're just like, yeah, this is for the server downtime 7 months ago. You haven't played in a long time. Here's some weapon upgrade tokens for that. Here's a couple of skins because you were here for our 3-month anniversary, and you're like, I was not here, but okay, I guess I made an account before then, so maybe that's the, like, there's a lot of free to play games. The First Descendant, for example, is like constantly sending you garbage upgrade items. Here's 3 hours of bonus XP for, I don't know. Maybe there's some part of that kind of just adds to the feel that I'm feeling here. But yeah, it left me unsatisfied. That's not to say that it's necessarily a bad game. Again, I think they did a pretty decent job of making a Battlefield clone here. Like they got most of the things you would think to put in there. But turns out DICE is really good at making games. I think that's the only thing I can look at is go like, it turns out DICE has made some really fucking incredible shooters over the years. Maybe not the last handful of years, but those legendary Battlefield games are legendary for a reason. And that feel isn't there. So maybe that just goes to show, like, it's everyone, I think at this point understands that it's hard, especially, if you're listening to this show when you're kind of like, if you're around the internet, checking up on games before they come out or whatever, you probably understand that video games are hard to make. And stuff like this just kind of reminds you, like, even when you're like theoretically making a great game, you're duplicating the thing that is probably, like, even in those cases, you're still not necessarily getting it done. Like it just, soulless is probably the word that comes to mind, I guess, when it comes to Delta Force. And it left me, in a weird way, it left me like, man, I really hope this new Battlefield game is great, because this was a feeling of like, man, I would really like to play one of these that made me feel good. I just want to feel it, man. But no, I felt nothing playing Delta Force. I was like, yeah, okay. And I guess, I would say I felt, maybe I felt disappointed playing the last Battlefield game, the last 3 Battlefield games, I guess. It was that feeling of just like, oh yeah, this isn't where it needs to be either, for different reasons, and that's a bummer. Battlefield's a bummer. I guess Eurogamer had a big long article, like kind of saying players are angry about some of the stuff they're saying about the next Battlefield because they have decided that any class will be able to equip any weapon in the upcoming Battlefield, which is something that the previous game did, that people were kind of like unhappy about, from the perspective of like a character class should include specific weapon types so that you are playing the weapon type correctly, or so you're playing the class correctly, and you have all of these things that are benefiting you if you're a sniper. But if you decide to take a shotgun instead, then what are you even doing? And I don't know. I think I see that from the other angle. I see that from the angle of someone who doesn't play a ton of class-based games and has specific types of guns that I like, but sometimes I don't like feeling like I am locked into leveling up only one class ever. Where it's like, oh, I want to, I kind of want to have like an all-purpose sort of weapon or a sniper rifle, but like there are some tools and things I would still like to be able to equip that like you're only giving to the medic, or you're only giving to the engineer, or whatever, right? It's like, oh, it'd be cool to have some explosives instead of this thing. Or what if I could revive players faster instead of having a grenade launcher or whatever. And so I do think there need to be some kind of limits, because I think the stuff that they did in the last Battlefield game of that when they got away from that stuff was too far. It was to the game's detriment, the things that they did last time out. But I do, but this specific thing doesn't bother me. Instead, this feels like it is opening up more parts of the game for me to play it. And they're going to build in systems where they're like, oh, there's going to be passive traits and stuff that the classes will have when you upgrade them that will benefit if you're using that class's signature weapon type, which, that remains to be seen. I haven't played the game or anything like that. And so, but that seems to be the way that they will kind of gently guide you into weapon choices. If you're like, well, if you're going to play this class, then you probably should play this weapon. And all of this stuff sort of works. And I think that you can still have plenty of class limited items around, like, well, the medics are the medics, man. If you want to take the fucking paddles, you need to play as the medic. Like, they can still have those sorts of limitations and let them carry whatever gun they want. I don't think that ends up being a huge problem. I don't think that ends up being a massive issue. Or rather, for me, that is a benefit. For me, that is something that allows me to experience more of the game, even if it is not optimal. I am never going to be the guy that is just like, well, play your fucking class. Like, no, that is like, I'll put it to you this way. For a game where they say they want to have 100 million players, they have to smooth off as much friction as they can without getting rid of what makes Battlefield. So letting people carry an assault rifle, if that's the gun they want to carry, I think is probably a smart move for them on that point as well. But also, because I think that's a genuine benefit. Because as someone who is not a hardcore Battlefield player anymore, I want to be able to kind of have a little bit more freedom than they have had previously. And so that specific aspect of it, I look at it as kind of a positive, and certainly not a make or break kind of feature, the way that I, this Eurogamer article kind of made it out to be a little bit. Or, they were kind of representing like, hey, there's community consternation around this specific feature and all of that, which I get, but also, I don't know, man. Battlefield's been in the hole for a long time. And we can all say, well, it was, they fixed a lot of stuff about the last one and it got to a good place and all this other stuff. That's what everyone said about Forza Motorsport as well, like they launched poorly, people moved on. You want to think that a game can get its audience back and, but they kind of only, I'm not going to say you only get one shot, because we see what was like Final Fantasy 14 or whatever. Like, you can occasionally suck it out, right? You're like, hey, we actually fixed this and we actually relaunched it, and now we're pretty excited about it. Debugging Fool in the chat says DICE hasn't launched a game in a good state since Battlefield 3. Let me tell you about Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. When they were getting ready to put those games out, and the week before launch, 4 was rough after launch as well, but 4 was the one with the review event where between every match, everyone who went to the review event, we were not invited, but I heard from multiple people who went to the review event and they were just like, after every match, at the end of every match, the server crashed. That's where they were at with the game, and people were reviewing it and being expected to just go that'll be fixed. That'll be fine. Don't worry about it. After every match, they had to disconnect completely, reconnect completely, all this other stuff. It was fucking crazy. Battlefield 3 was not like that, but Battlefield 3 had some pre-release issues. Some pre-release issues of its own, for sure. all that is to say, like, much like we were saying with Destiny earlier, there's a part of me who is always going to be ready to look at the new Battlefield game and go like, what do they got this time? What are they up to this time? Are they, have they, what have they changed? What's the style here? What war are we reenacting here? What part of the, how are we unlocking stuff? Have they made it friendlier for console players? Have they brought back commander view? What are they doing with Battlefield? I'm always going to want to know. But it hasn't, I don't know, it hasn't really, the last several, I have not felt incredibly fondly for a Battlefield game probably since 3. Bad Company 1 and 2, of course, those games as well, but it's kind of a different thing. It's kind of a little different thing. Not that different, I guess, but those are great games. Those are amazing video games. But part of what I loved about the Bad Company games were the campaign and all of that sort of stuff, So it's sort of here's your console Battlefield and whatever. But yeah, it was 3 and 4 was really good, but also 4 was a lot like 3, and so 4 felt like 3 again. In a lot of ways, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I feel like we've done this. I'm having a fine time, but I had a finer time last time around. You know what I mean? And so that was always kind of a weird thing. Anyway, that's how I'm feeling about Delta Force, but just that specific mode, like it is still this free to play thing with a campaign in it, and the campaign is free as well, and I don't know. I wonder if that's any good. I will probably take a look at it, but like that extraction mode rubbed me every wrong way it could the last time I tried it, so probably not going to dip back into that ever again. But yeah. All of that said, I am now even more interested in the new Battlefield game, because playing this left me in a state of like, this isn't. I feel grimy. I need it like I need it, man. And hopefully they will make it like they need to make it, because I need it the way I need it. And that's all I can really say about Battlefield. Is that we'll see how it all goes, I guess. Big wrestling weekend. AEW had what might be one of its biggest storyline moments in its entire history over the weekend, at a pay-per-view they called All In. And AEW is really just doing some great stuff. It's not all great. I think if you stare at it long enough, there are things you go like, this aspect of this could be better, this could be this, and this match maybe didn't, but like they're hitting more than they miss, and that's, I don't know, that feels like something of a rarity for wrestling. I didn't get to catch the show live because it was they started it super early. Like here on the West Coast, their pre-show started at like 10 a.m. and then the main show started at like noon. And so like I didn't get to catch any of it live, with the exception I caught like the last couple of matches live, and then ended up going back and watching the rest of it later that night and the following day. They're putting on really fun, really great shows, and they're building really intriguing characters, and they're paying things off the right way and building these storylines so well. They're really great at these good character moments. Like, so they had a match with Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay. And Will Ospreay had a big Assassin's Creed themed entrance, such that Ubisoft sent out a press release about it yesterday. They're like, hey, this guy likes Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed is 25% off. They sent out like video of the entrance and all this other stuff, and I was like, that's cool. It's really silly, but Ubisoft they got to get people to be aware of that game every chance they get. They wrestled a tag team called the Young Bucks, who have been really good absolute assholes lately. And it's a thing that you look at, and I think it's something that I think people are picking apart and going like, this was way too long. This didn't need to happen this way. But like as a character moment where these guys, the Young Bucks, they were spoilers. They were executive vice presidents of the company, and they were there at the founding of it and whatever. But they turned that into an on-screen role where they became like shitbag authority figure types, and they could fuck with people and just be real assholes and have like some weight behind it because they were executive vice presidents or whatever. And so playing that character of like being super full of themselves and all of this other shit, their entrance where they came out billing themselves as the founding fathers of the company, where they came out, they came out onto the stage, they posed, and then they walked over to a giant boat. And then the boat rolled around to the ring, and the whole thing took like what felt like fucking years. And every moment of it was perfect because they're assholes. They're complete full of themselves. Like the whole character is like, look at the pomp and circumstance to this. This is us. We deserve this because we built this company. No, you stay there and wait while we get on the boat. Like it was fucking perfect. Just fucking perfect. And they did the thing. They have had this storyline running where the champion, Jon Moxley, who was formerly Dean Ambrose in the WWE, if you're unaware, held the title, and basically the story was he was more or less holding it hostage. And this title run he has had was at times incredibly boring. At times, there were matches that you were just like, man, this was like the worst match on this entire show. When are they going to end this? When are they going to move forward? When are they going to do this? And in the moment, like that stuff's all true. Like you look at that and go like, and you wonder like, what would be the better way to do this? What would be the better way to tell that part of the story? But at the same time, having all of that culminate in him finally getting beaten, by Hangman Adam Page, pays off all of those moments along the way really, really well. That's a really hard thing to reconcile, right? Where you're like, okay, like how do we have this guy who is, meant to be holding this thing hostage, and how do we keep that exciting for all of this time while not getting too exciting because it needs to mean something when he gets beaten? So he kind of needs to be dragging this shit into the ground and running it into the ground. Like he kind of, like there's an aspect there of like, and I think they flew a little too close to the sun on like his title run got a little too drab in some cases. Oh, you're just like, man, it made for some shitty moments over the last 9 months or however long it was. But they paid it off, and they did a thing. This is something that there's a great article on VGBs.com that I think gets into this. That was something that I felt when I saw it. When I saw the match, because they end the match with Hangman literally hanging Moxley over the top rope with a chain until he turned color. He was turning colors, and it's the sort of thing that I think, if other companies have fucked this up multiple times over the years, and the article on VGBs actually is really good at getting into this. He taps out. He gives up. He loses the match. He doesn't pass out. And that's the thing that, like, I think a lot of wrestling companies have gotten into when it comes to these sort of submission situations where someone is supposed to give up. Instead, they go like, he was so tough and committed, he passed out instead of giving up. And he still lost the match, but he didn't give up. Like, no, in this moment, he fucking gave up. He said, nope, you beat me. And they did it right. They had all of these other characters involved in the match, because over the last year, there's been, like Jon Moxley has a faction of people behind him. And, and the story on the other side was like, oh, some of these people have to come together and get over some shit and get okay, like character growth, human growth in an interesting way to like come together and beat this crew of thugs, of criminals, and I think they did that part of it so well too. In a way that I think, again, wrestling gets wrong so often. They will fuck it up so much where they'll go like, oh, we're going to overbook. And I think AEW has done this in the past before, but like this was a case where I think they've pulled it off and made everything mean something. And so you have this situation here where, again, all of the characters in the match are kind of playing the right role and doing it correctly. And everything makes sense. It's not just a guy appearing and running in and for the surprise of like, oh wow, why is the Undertaker here? And or just like goofy shit like that is just like, oh, what are some big names we could get to run in and make this match feel bigger, the way that WWE tends to do in their big match situations. They had a similar situation where, when Cody Rhodes finally won the championship, there are like a billion people running into the ring, and just like, and they're all like big moments of just like, oh, look at this legendary superstar who is here, why is he? Oh, he's hitting that guy and he's running away, and all of that. The way that they did that ends up coming off like, oh, Cody Rhodes could not do it by himself because he is not good enough. He needed all this help. And I think the way that they booked the AEW match, to compare it to some of the WWE Bloodline stuff, I think they made all that stuff make sense in a way that pays it all off and puts them in a pretty good place going forward for wherever they decide to go next storyline wise. And I thought that stuff was really, really well done. Again, like relatively nuanced stuff that I think wrestling kind of, when it's done really well, there is that nuance there. And a lot of times, I don't know, like so many of these moments just kind of get blown past and just kind of like, whatever. And they did stuff that I think is really good at like it pulls you in even further, I guess, of just like, man, this is all super well done, and I'm excited to see where they go next, and that was, it was an interesting show in a lot of ways, I think there, and they'll be off to build to their next stuff, and I think they did a really good job across a lot of that show. Intriguing opportunities, and finally seeing more of someone like Athena on the show, and just like there's just like top to bottom, just like I was very impressed with that show as like a finishing point for some stories, which again I think some companies are a little reluctant to end a thing, but we'll say, whatever. Like Jon Moxley will have his revenge, right? I'm sure, he'll come back and he'll try to put a bag over somebody's head or whatever. They'll figure out, they'll figure out some way to fuck all this up. Eventually, that's the nature of wrestling, right? Is there's always something you just go like, man. Ugh. But yeah, I was pretty impressed with that show, with everything except for the start time. And and that kid, what the fuck's his name? Not the Rizzler, the kid who was with the Rizzler. The Big Justice. I think that he hangs out with the Rizzler. He hit a really good spear. He hit a really good spear. Best spear of the day, some are saying. It was like, all right, fucking cool. That's fun. It's fun. Whatever. Yeah, it was it was a good time. It was a good time for sure. Let's take our last break. We'll get into the news. After this. Wait, what am I doing? Where am I? I got to push all these buttons. Okay. I got to move these buttons over to the other side. Sometimes being happy is as simple as having the right pair of underwear. Or maybe to flip that around, you know, it's real easy to be unhappy in the wrong pair of underwear. You know, you get real uncomfortable real fast. That's why MeUndies is here for you. They have micromodal fabric, and it's magic, man. It's super soft, it's breathable, and stays cool even when it's like 90 degrees out and your air conditioning is completely failing or being replaced or whatever is going on with that thing this week. They've got everything, briefs, boxers, bralettes, you name it. And they got summer prints that are fun, tropical vibes, popsicles, even pool floaties on their things. Your underwear drawer deserves a vacation too. That's right. They've got style for everyone, a cut for every butt, as they say, with over 20 different styles and 100 different colors and prints. And their signature super soft micromodal fabric is breathable, stretchy, comfortable. It's ideal for all day wear. That's right. You can wear this underwear all day long. And if you need something that is even more breathable and summer-proof, they've got the Move Me line with Breathe fabric with it has moisture wicking and anti-odor technology, perfect for working out or just keeping you extra cool on those sweltering days. They use sustainably sourced materials. They work with partners that care for their workers. And if you're not happy with your first pair of undies, it's on MeUndies. Over 30 million pairs of MeUndies have been sold with 90,000 five-star reviews. MeUndies are an essential summer must-have for every drawer. I am quite literally wearing a pair of these right now. And it's real nice. I can sit in this chair. I can get up and move around. If I got to get out in the garage where it is 1 trillion degrees and move a bunch of stuff around, hey, these underwear are up to the task. And now you can score sizzling summer deals like up to 50% off at MeUndies.com/Jeff and enter the promo code Jeff. That's MeUndies.com/Jeff. Promo code Jeff for up to 50% off. MeUndies, comfort that's made for summer. My daughter caught a little bit of that wrestling show, which I didn't intend to happen. But, you know, they were playing outside all day and then, you know, coming in, kind of getting ready for bed. And my daughter was in here just watching some TV. She turns around and one of the women's matches was getting ready to start. And she's like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, that is Tony Storm. I'm like, "Well, who is that?" It's like, "That's a Mercedes. They're going to fight." And she's like, "Who do you want to win?" And I said, "Well, I think I would prefer it if Tony Storm won this one." I said, "Me too." I'm like, okay. And then before I knew it, I was sitting with my 5-year-old daughter watching wrestling. And the whole time I'm thinking, this match is unlikely to have the brutality of some of the other matches on the card. But at the same time, so I'm in real time, she's watching this, and I'm trying to like explain to her what wrestling is, and also like what is happening and what is, you know, like how is that? And so I'm like, okay, well, they're fighting each other, and then the winner gets the belt. There's like the belt is very fancy. Yes, the belt is very fancy. And I said, but and I had to smarten up my 5-year-old daughter. Like as she's watching a match, and I'd be like, well, the important thing to know here is that much like Peppa Pig was on the TV over here, a lot like Peppa Pig, it's a story. Like they're working. It may look like they're fighting, but it's more like a dance, and they're really working together to not hurt each other as best as they can to make. And she's like, "Yeah, but who's winning?" She just kept asking over and over again, "Who's winning?" I'm like, "It's not okay." So to win, you have to pin someone's shoulder. That's why the referee gets down and counts. If she counts to 3, then this is. And I'm like struggling to try to explain all of this stuff. And as I'm telling her that that professional wrestling is a work, I'm like, but this isn't. This sucks that I'm doing this. I should probably tell her it's real. But I had to be like, but don't ever do this to your brother. It was just like, okay, I need to tell you that this is fake so that you don't go out and do it. But my wife was not impressed. She came in after the match was just about over, and when it was time for everyone to go upstairs and start bath time, my wife was like, "What are you doing?" Like, it was on. She started paying attention to it. I told her it was like dancing. Anyway. Electronic Arts has shut down a website called Speed Hunters that it had been running for like almost 20 years. This comes to us from videogameschronicle.com, who is reporting that, from, I guess, one of the contributors to Speed Hunters is saying that the site was on ice because EA has currently shelved Need for Speed. Speed Hunters, as far as I can tell, was like it's a car site. It's a site about cars. It's not really a Need for Speed site. It is a site covering, car culture, and you go look at the site and they're talking about legendary strange cars and fucking Civic Type R's and like all this other stuff and concept cars and just kind of like car news to a certain extent. It hadn't been updated in a while. But yes, the report is now that they have shut it down specifically because Need for Speed is not currently in development. We knew that part of it already because Criterion, who had been working on presumably the next Need for Speed, is now been pulled in to work on Battlefield as a part of the shuttering of Ridgeline Games, who was working on the single player campaign for Battlefield. And it really just seems like it's practically all hands on deck. Oh God, we've got to get this Battlefield game out the door. And so with everyone working on that, there was, the Need for Speed game has been set aside. Presumably not permanently. I would not take this to mean that the Need for Speed franchise is over and done with, I guess is my point there. But at some point, EA did decide that they did not need to be funding and running a website about cars, which is a strange thing for them to have been running in the first place, I'll say. But yeah. Yeah, no more Speed Hunters. My first thought here was like, man, car games. What are we? This is kind of a thought that I've been having for about a decade now. And it is that idea of, do kids want cars? Do kids still? And by kids, I mean like teens and adults, like, kids that are old enough to drive cars. And do they want real cars? Do they care about real cars? Do they care about car culture? Are they ever going to want to be a bolt-on wonder boy who is out to get smoked? Like, what, what's going to happen to car culture in a world where, I don't know, no one can fucking afford that shit. And do they want it? And as more and more cars become electric, like power in cars is kind of a strange concept these days of its own, as kind of the nature of the car changes and whatever else and everything. I think, the like tuner culture around electric vehicles is really interesting and weird in a way that I'm kind of interested in, but yeah, that's kind of, as we think about like Forza Motorsport potentially ending, right? At least for the foreseeable future. in favor of something like Horizon, you start to even wonder, like, what's the future of Forza Horizon? This is something I remember asking people at Turn 10 years ago. Like, what does it mean? Like, are kids going to care about cars, this many years down the line or whatever? And it just feels like we're kind of still trudging on to that future and in different ways, though. I don't know. They, electric cars and self-driving cars and all that stuff seems like it just kind of all sucks. It's like VR in a weird way. It's like, this is fancy future technology that everyone should be extremely excited about, but instead it's actually like, oh, this is actually like really fucked up. We're in that turmoil period that I thought we would get to, where like when all of the cars are self-driving and they can communicate with each other, that sounds like that would be some of the safest vehicles on the road. You might also say, why don't we just get a really good rail system or buses or, some other method of transit that doesn't involve people owning individual cars that are automatically driven? It's like everyone has their own little train. Like, why would we do that? Isn't there a better way to, anyway, setting that aside for a moment. In this middle period where you've got like cars, some of which can drive themselves and some of them are driven by humans, that seems like the worst of all worlds, right? Where you've got unpredictable humans and you've got self-driving systems that have to account for unpredictable humans, and they're also new and bad in general in a lot of ways. There's an open source. I was looking at it and like I don't have a car that, can do it. But there are different vehicles out there that do different forms of like self-driving or self-parking or whatever, and they have the sensors in them to kind of do whatever. And someone apparently, like, there is an open source self-driving software package that you can install onto some cars or fit into some vehicles and hook it up to the sensors and kind of hack self-driving onto a car that maybe wasn't ever intended to have it. And on one hand, I'm like, that's fucking awesome. Holy shit, I want to do that. And I'm like, oh, wait, it's a car. That's the fucking worst idea in the world. Oh, shit. Like, we cannot give people these fucking abilities. They're going to kill us all. Like, what do you mean you don't trust it? The source code is right there. Fix it yourself if you don't like the way it makes your car burst into flames by crashing into a brick wall at 90 miles. That's on you, man. You should have looked at it. Anyway, it's the future is like terrible and exciting and twisted and dangerous in entirely different ways than I think we thought it was going to be. So it's really something, man. Speaking of really something, this is the back and forth here between Krafton and the developers of Subnautica 2 over at Unknown Worlds spilled over into the public eye in a pretty nasty way over the last handful of days. I got an email. I didn't know that there was a problem until I got this email titled "A Message to the Subnautica Community from Krafton." I'm not going to read this whole thing because it's actually very long, because like Krafton is like, oh, they're talking shit, huh? Well, check this out. To our 12 million fellow subnauts, and then it has a headline below it, which is weird. Inevitable leadership change driven by project abandonment despite holding 90% of earnout for themselves. And so basically, like, there was a payout that was due if Subnautica 2 shipped in a certain time frame, and Krafton was pushing to delay it out of that window, which would have, changed that earnout. It would have changed something about that payout, that bonus. However, the founders of the company who sold the company to Krafton in the first place, the claim here is that they were apparently still due to make a whole lot of money around this, regardless of that bonus. 90% of the earnout for themselves, apparently. And then there's just like here, background of leadership change. Crafton deeply values Subnautica's unique creativity. This is a letter to Subnautica fans that they put out as a means to explain the crazy shit happening with Subnautica 2. Because as this stuff spilled into public view, people were like, wait a minute, is this game ever going to ship? What the fuck is happening here? I'll just kind of take some, we collaborated closely with the studio's leadership who were central to the creation of the original Subnautica to foster the optimal environment for a successful Subnautica 2. Specifically, in addition to the initial $500 million purchase price, we allocated approximately 90% of the up to $250 million earnout compensation to these 3 former executives with the expectation that they would demonstrate leadership and active involvement in the development of Subnautica 2. And it goes on to talk about how that leadership was not doing their jobs according to Crafton. Again, this is all according to Crafton. Originally planned for early access launch in early 2024, but the timeline has since been significantly delayed. Crafton made multiple requests to Charlie and Max to resume their roles as game director and technical director respectively, but both declined to do so. In particular, following the failure of Moonbreaker, Crafton asked Charlie to devote himself to the development of Subnautica 2. However, instead of participating in the game development, he chose to focus on a personal film project. We're deeply disappointed by the former leadership's conduct, and above all, we feel a profound sense of betrayal by their failure to honor the trust placed in them by our fans. So, and then they're trying to weaponize the fan base there a little bit, which is... This is some weirdly nasty shit to just be putting out there. But the upshot of this is that Crafton removed that leadership team. To uphold our commitment to provide you with the best possible gaming experience, we made the difficult yet necessary decision to change the executive leadership. Subnautica 2 has been and continues to be actively developed by a dedicated core team who share genuine passion, accountability, and commitment to the game. We deeply respect their expertise and creativity and will continue to provide full and unwavering support, enabling them to focus solely on delivering the exceptional game you deserve. Yeah, so that's that was fucking crazy. But yes, the news here is that, the Ted Gill is the co-founder and chief director. Charlie Cleveland is the creative director, and technical director Max McGuire are all basically done effective immediately. And they have put a new CEO in place at the company. And this sounds like a mess. There's also, so now naturally, of course, reading that email, you're like, oh, we're about to hear lawsuits. We're about to hear about some lawsuits. And so the former leaders of Unknown Worlds, I believe, have since filed suit here. And Crafton has said that the moves they made were not influenced by that $250 million payout and all this other stuff. So, which of course they would say that. The Jason Schreier from Bloomberg has weighed in to say that the lawsuit that these former employees are now putting against Crafton is for breach of contract. And I guess that press release, so a bunch of slides, this is all on the Subnautica subreddit, but a bunch of slides about Subnautica 2 milestones and internal stuff, like those leaked out, which Crafton immediately confirmed were real. And just like a very, this got 0 to nasty in the course of an hour last week. And So if you were looking forward to Subnautica 2, who the fuck knows? They've got new leadership in place. If the team is still working on it, who knows? But Steve, was it Papoutsis? I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I'm almost certainly pronouncing that wrong, but I don't know that I've heard it said out loud before, who was formerly running Striking Distance, which was the studio that did Callisto Protocol, which their leadership bailed. A lot of their leadership bailed after Callisto Protocol shipped and failed to catch fire. He is now the CEO of the Subnautica 2 developers. So he's also formerly of Visceral Games at EA. And yeah, I suspect we have not heard the last of this, but it may be a little bit before we, like, it seems like they're like, okay, this is what happens. We're out here talking shit. And now they're going to get, whoever's left there is going to get back to work on the game. And then this lawsuit thing's going to play out however it plays out. Like, I don't know. Like, crazy. Rare got out and talked about the future of Sea of Thieves in the kind of the wake of all of those Xbox layoffs. I think it left, fans of Sea of Thieves in a situation where they're like wondering about the future of that game. They're going to be overhauling some of their season stuff, and they got out there and said, this is according to videogameschronicle.com, that they're going to bring private servers to Sea of Thieves early next year. These will be paid servers. The aspect of them being private paid servers kind of sounds a little similar to the Minecraft Realms product, where you can sign up to pay for a custom Minecraft server kind of within the game itself. My guess is that it will work something similarly to that, I guess, but they're saying that the private server stuff will give you access to tools like a cinematic camera, which is the same one they use to make trailers for the game. Rare said that the feature is an expensive one to support, which is why it requires a monthly fee. Part of why it requires a monthly fee. They will kind of overhaul their season model a little bit. It looks like they're looking to make changes in season 17. 17. It's a lot of seasons for a game. Yeah, I don't know. They got out there and kind of talked to that a little bit about the future of the game and trying to reinvigorate the sandbox gameplay of Sea of Thieves, kind of first and foremost, as they kind of looked to tackle some of these topics that are maybe becoming, not quite long-standing issues with the game, but things that the community seems like that they're very focused on. This breakdown says that, the season will last 3 months. The first month of the season is reinvigorating the sandbox game. The second month is about live events, and the third month will have a heavy focus on community. So that's a structural change from the way that they've been doing seasons. And we'll see how all of that turns out. I think, Sea of Thieves is a game that, when it shipped on other platforms, it seemed like it sold pretty well on PlayStation. And so I'm sure that gives them additional resources and additional responsibility to support players who just bought the game because they just recently got the ability to buy the game. If they were to put that game out on PlayStation and then abandon it a year later or however long it's been, that would probably not be a very good look. So good on them for continuing to support the game. It sounds like that there are enough players there that are, excited about that and are there for it, if you will. But let me know if you're there for this. Nintendo has filed a copyright notice in collaboration with Universal Pictures, according to IGN.com, for something called Untitled Donkey Kong Project, motion picture. That's right. They are looking to be moving forward with a Donkey Kong movie. I don't know that I don't know, man. Do you want a Donkey Kong movie? Is that the thing? Like Donkey Kong. Is Donkey Kong a strong enough character on his own to drive a film? I guess I should ask, did you ever watch the Donkey Kong Country cartoon? Or did you watch, what is it, Legend of the Crystal Coconuts, or whatever the hell the CG kind of movie thing they did years and years and years ago, where, yeah, they did 2 seasons of that show. They did 2 seasons of that show. I don't know. I feel like, if anything, the quality of that show was maybe proof that they should not do a Donkey Kong movie. But I suppose anything is possible. I like the original Donkey Kong cartoon that was part of the Saturday Supercade. It was fun. But also I was like 9 or 7 or something, it was like it's a very, very long time ago. That's kind of come in conjunction with like people have been so I guess copies of Donkey Kong Bonanza have leaked out, and so people are out there playing it, and this led to a lot of people, like reporters and stuff that I follow, posting I don't know, maybe this, but they kind of all posted, hey, just want to let you know, Donkey Kong Bonanza has leaked, and so there are people out there posting a lot of content about it from leaked copies of the game. So watch out for spoilers. Like things happen in every video game. Every video game has things that happen in it that someone somewhere considers to be a spoiler. But do you think that? I don't know, man. Like, I think we're maybe being a little too precious about the nature of Donkey Kong's universe here to but there are almost certainly moments in that game that will be surprising, and you're like, oh, look at that. And sure, man, I want to see that game, but like, it's been interesting kind of this has also led to me going back and looking at some other Donkey Kong video games after a while here, and playing a little bit of Donkey Kong Country again for the first time in a while, and just really not enjoying them at all. I think everything everything post Donkey Kong 94, I don't know that I have any interest in. The rarefication of Donkey Kong, like that, those games were, I think those are not good I don't think those are fun video games to play. I think they are, like, you maybe you are interested in the way they look. I think that is crazy as well, but like there's just the way that those games have always felt in the hand, the way that they play, the timing, the way the controls feel. I just have never done anything at all for me. I think the only thing that I would say, the only positive thing that came out of Donkey Kong Country was the soundtrack. Out of that trilogy of games, or whatever games have come afterwards. Donkey Kong 64 is a weird fucking thing. And that came out so late that I don't know that I played it much when that game was new, but I did kind of revisit it a little bit lately, and it's like, man, did we give up Banjo-Kazooie for this? We fucked up, man. We fucked up. But yeah, that whole that initial trilogy of games, I feel like I feel like maybe if you were a certain age at a certain place at a certain time in your life, you seem to really like those Donkey Kong Country games. But they feel yucky, for lack of a better word. I think those games feel yucky. Anyway, a Donkey Kong movie. we get like a Jack Black to do that too. Like can we get Chris Pratt to do the voice of Donkey Kong? What can we do here? Here's the question: would you rather play Crash Bandicoot or Donkey Kong Country? I would rather play Crash Bandicoot. I don't think the Crash games have aged super well. And I think that like the later Crash games are like they made too many of them. But like Crash Bandicoot 1 was all right. Crash Bandicoot 1 was cool at the time it came out. I would not say that Donkey Kong Country was cool at the time it came out. Again, people of a specific age, specific whatever, obviously feel differently about that game, but they're wrong. It's fine. Yeah, I would rather play. And Crash is the Crash Bandicoot series is weird because I think they made like meaningful upgrades to those games over the course of, especially that initial trilogy. Like by the time you get to Crash 3, like the game is technically so much better than Crash 1, but also I think by the first half of Crash 2, I was like, dude, I don't want to play any more of this. So by the time Crash 3 came along, it was too late for me to appreciate the benefits of Crash 3. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, yeah, they made another one. Like, cool. It's cool that it's better than Crash 2. Yeah, sure. I still don't want to fucking do this anymore. I played the shit out of Crash Bandicoot 1, and then I'm good. I'm good, man. I don't need more of this. And then once it became, once they started putting Crash Bandicoot on an Xbox, and it just became like, Universal Interactive or Activision, as it kind of ping ponged around a little bit there for a bit, it was just like, fuck this. I'm good. I'm straight. I don't need it. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm very interested to see Bonanza, and the kind of a retaking of the Donkey Kong character. I look at that redesign and look at what they're doing to make these characters kind of just look better and not be tied to this weird thing that Rare made all these years ago, and move forward. And I do get excited about that, where it's like I like the look of the character a lot more. Like the way Donkey Kong looks now, to me, is way more connected to his original look. All the way back to Donkey Kong, like, the teeth are different, but like there was a lot of Donkey Kong art around then. You could get Donkey Kong coloring books, you could get all this other Donkey Kong stuff. And I think that, the way that they made him look now, I think is so much more tapped into that. And I really appreciate that, as a fan of original Donkey Kong, as a fan of actual Donkey Kong. I like that they're doing that. And it's not a direct one-to-one thing. Like, they're not just saying like, he's got Nintendo teeth now. Like, he's, him and King Hippo are hanging out, same dentist. But like it is again, like much closer to that vibe than the kind of weird, the stuff that Rare did to it. Fucking launching out of barrels and minecart levels and all this. It's like, ugh, blah. My wife really likes Donkey Kong Country. It's interesting. But man, yeah, I want to see what this new game ends up being. There was a story going around, and it's such a bummer to have like this story already out there. And it's like it's Nintendo reiterating its approach to everything, right? There's nothing about it that you're like it is shocking or surprising for the most part. But it was the report was like, as they've been talking more and more to the developers of, they've decided to let people know who made the game. which I thought was funny. Because it felt relatively apparent that like, oh, this seems like something that the Odyssey team is taking on. If not directly, then some subset of that team. Like you look at it and go like, yeah, this is probably the thing that they started working on at some point after that. And so they said, yeah, you're right, and it was, yeah. But like, there's a quote out there, that's basically saying like, yeah, sometimes the frame rate's bad, but we wanted the game to be fun, and so we focused on that over performance. You're like, man, this system just came out like, what, a month ago? And we're already talking about games dropping frames? What are we doing? Don't do it. Don't get out there and say that shit. What the fuck are we doing? And I think it's specifically because, like, people have played the game in different situations and been like, oh yeah, there's some tech stuff in there that's a little, and them getting out there and acknowledging like, yup, we focused on it being fun, and so we wanted to make it bigger and crazier, and the performance took a hit as a result. Like, I get it. Like, sure, dude, yeah, hell yeah. One of the coolest things old scrolling space shooters, STGs, used to do is when you would kill the boss, the game would slow to a crawl because the explosion was so big and crazy that the game couldn't keep up. And it just felt like the game was breaking. And you wondered, like, did they do this deliberately? Because they wanted this moment to look like, they wanted to slow it down so you could see this thing blowing up? Or did they just say, fuck it? It sounds like the developers of Donkey Kong Bonanza said, fuck it. We want him to be able to break everything. And that comes with a price. And we're willing to pay that price, which I think is reasonable given the type of game they're making. But whatever. We'll see. We'll see how it actually, how it actually goes, I suppose, when all is said and done. That game is out this week. A second Nintendo Switch 2 game. Bonkers, man. And that's it for news. podcast@guard.bike is the email address. Hook me up, send me an email, and we'll talk. Dante writes in and says, you mentioned last week that you don't care for Lupe Fiasco. I mentioned this to a friend, and he said, it's probably because Lupe is corny. Nailed it. Yes. I've heard this sentiment many times, and it's usually pointed at rappers such as Logic, Hop Sin, Chance the Rapper, Macklemore, and a few others. I don't really listen to that much to any of those artists besides Logic, but I've never understood the corny label for any of them. Was this started by Joe Budden just constantly shitting on Logic? What do you think makes a rapper corny? I think a lot of it is kind of subject matter. A lot of it is like carrying your, and it's a weird thing with hip hop, right? Because like there is a portion of hip hop that is about representing yourself as the best, no matter what. I'm the fucking dopest rapper in the game. That's it. Lupe Fiasco, I don't necessarily like the beats, the rhymes, whatever. Like, he's capable. He's perfectly capable. Like all of these rappers are. But like, whether it's the subject matter or like it is like there's a subject matter combined with just how seriously you're taking it that I think ends up backfiring past a certain point, and that might be where I would put a Lupe Fiasco. Macklemore, who thinks he's like, who comes off sometimes like he thinks he's like saving the world with his music or something. You're like, all right. But Macklemore had, there was that one song that I thought was actually pretty fucking good, relatively recently. Oh, what the fuck was it called? It was the one where he was rapping about drinking 40s. Yes, Thrift Shop. That's the one. No, let's see. I'm like scrolling through what the, like, I guess they didn't, I guess this Wikipedia page does not break out which songs were released as singles or whatever. Anyway. Point being, there was a Macklemore song recently that I was like, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. And Thrift Shop is what it is, man. I don't know. Like, Thrift Shop is like, you know, you want like a pop rap, whatever. Like, I don't really have a lot of shit to talk about Thrift Shop. Per se. It's fine. I don't think it's like, you know, some amazing, like, I don't want to listen to it a bunch, but like it's catchy. It's like, you know, it's like a pop track, you know, like, yeah, sure, man. Thrift Shop. He's doing rap about what you know. Logic, I think there's some Logic stuff that is really good and some Logic stuff that is just like over the, just like, all right, man, just calm down. I think Hobson's whole thing is like Hobson's whole thing is disgusting. I have no respect for anything Hobson has done. Like is Hobson corny? I don't, you know, like, yeah, I don't know, maybe. But I think like that starts before he even picks up a microphone. Like there's something about that dude when I see him. And it's, I think you end up like, there's something about you talk about what makes a rapper corny. It's not just about that. It's like there's a Microsoft says, I'll take Lupe over Travis Scott. Yeah, me too. Yeah. I don't think Lupe Fiasco is good, but I'd rather like listen to fucking Lupe Fiasco for the rest of my life than fucking listen to fucking Travis Scott. Jesus Christ. It's always funny, like when people who are not like do not necessarily have the fucking skills to get it done take themselves super seriously. I think that's always like a really interesting one. I'm just like, oh boy, okay, all right, buddy, let's calm down a little bit. Travis Scott, gee, I don't even, yeah, Travis Scott's fucking, yeah. I think you end up with some rappers that like, you know, like if you viewing them as corny ends up being like a factor of like their fan base, which is not fair to them in some cases. But there are definitely situations like, I don't really have fucking any major opinions about like Death Grips. I think that like their shit is like, it is what it is. When I listen to it, I am not like extremely fucking impressed. Like, oh my God, this is some fucking landscape changing shit. But like a lot of people who listen to that view it that way in a way that I'm just like, okay, yeah, sure, dude, whatever, man. That guy's dick is on the cover. You're like, oh shit. You know, it's just like, I don't know, man. It's, and then also like fans of Death Grips are like super fucking annoying online. And so on top of that, you've just got this like rate your music crowd that is just like fucking abysmal to fucking interact with. Oliver Tree is another dude who's overrated and corny to you. Yeah. Oliver Tree, I think there are some tracks that are fine. I don't think, Oliver Tree is like, I think has talent. Like, you know, like all of these artists, I think have talent to a certain degree. But at the same time, I like, are they the greatest to ever do it or whatever? Like, it's like whatever. It's like whatever with that stuff. But yeah, I could not name a single Oliver Tree song, but I've heard a handful of them and been like, okay, that's okay, sure. But like the hair thing, whatever. Yeah. But the Death Grips thing, I've been on both sides of that. I was like, so like, as someone who really has come to really, really like JPEG Mafia, I am like, whether I like it or not, by saying that out loud, there are people who take that a certain way, because a lot of people who like JPEG Mafia, and I've done the research on this, because I've been like, I want to know what's JPEG Mafia up to. I should go look and see if there's any new news. And you encounter people online who like JPEG Mafia, and you go, oh, all these people are fucking terrible, and like none of them listen to any other hip hop. Like, what the fuck is going? And it's just real. It's real frustrating. It's real frustrating. Like, you find yourself like reading people like trying to dissect JPEG Mafia tracks without any context for the last several decades of hip hop, and they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. And that, I'm not trying to put myself on some other, but like, as someone who has listened to a lot of other hip hop, there's stuff in his music that you go like, yeah, he is a fantastic fucking hip hop artist who cares about this shit and cares about this shit. And then like all of these fucking like weird fucking anxious white kids, just like they're terrible. They're fucking terrible. So it's like super fucking weird. Cannon Shout says, yeah, you know, the fan base that's like that too. It's people who like Run the Jewels. Yes. Run the Jewels is, if you're booking a festival and you need a single hip hop act to put on your festival with all of your fucking other like hardcore and rock bands, Run the Jewels is perfect. Perfect for that. I think Call Ticketron's a pretty good song. But I think that like both of them have been better elsewhere. Like that's and I know that was like the running joke for a while, is like, oh, people are always gonna say, but like I think that like Killer Mike has had some fucking like very vital fucking shit over the years. Like that album with that fucking song about Reagan is fucking great. That whole record is fucking great. I would take that record over anything Run the Jewels has ever done. And LP has been fucking, killing it for fucking years. So I just look at that thing and it's just like, I don't know, they're having fun. Whatever. They're having fun and people seem to like it, but like it's, I don't know. Like I don't like any of those fucking songs. And like people who are way into it are into it in a very weirdly defensive way that's just like, I don't know if I feel like you should be better versed on this subject matter than you are sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. It's well, like also they shouldn't have to be, right? Like no one, I'm like telling people to like go do the homework on this genre of music. Like no, they don't have to. Like enjoy what you fucking enjoy, right? Like music is always, I think always going to be the most personal media. I think that like there's just something about the way music resonates with some people and doesn't with others that I think is incredibly difficult to, like, you can try to talk about it in, you can try to pick apart various aspects of the way something is produced or the way some of these songs are written and try to contextualize it in history in some way or whatever. But you're always going to have people who are younger and don't give a shit about any of that. Like Anthony Fantano is like an interesting dude, but also like I don't really have a lot of like when I see that guy reviewing albums, I go like, yeah, he's putting a lot of thought into this, and I appreciate that. But that doesn't mean I agree with the vast majority of what he's saying or whatever, because it's just like it's whatever, right? But he gets put on this like Dave Meltzer level sometimes of like some people treat him as like the guy who is reviewing albums or whatever, and I'm like, okay, I don't know, like that's maybe a little weird, but I don't know, he does his thing. But I ultimately I think music is one of those things that's really hard to review, because again, I think you're reviewing it on these levels that I think a lot of the audience won't care about, because everyone is bringing their own thing to music. And so when you you know, when you're sitting there trying to dissect that stuff in a review kind of idea, or like a review concept or whatever, you're doing it for people who specifically like that. You know, it's the same way. I think you could argue that, like, you know, video game reviews are in a lot of ways, you know, were written for people to, you know, or they were never written for people to just like have forum arguments about, but like most of the consumption around them became people just like that were more fascinated with the kind of meta score or the overall review or the whatever, like that. I think that sort of stuff, is ultimately not who video game reviews are for. It's for people that are ideally, you know, like looking for help. Or just like, I'm trying to figure out like what, you know, hey, what am I buying next? Games are expensive. They're only getting more expensiver. What do I do? You know, there are people in those positions, right? And so reviews were always meant to help those sort of people. But, you know, the internet just took them and ran with them for entirely different reasons and started a bunch of dog shit fanboy arguments and, you know, basically became like, you know, it's the reason why people say the word gamer so derisively is because, you know, some of these people just fucking suck. Some of these people out there just fucking suck. And they're there to just fucking like start a bunch of bad faith arguments about like, you know, word choice in a review. Like, well, this means he liked it more than he said he did. Or then it's like, no, that's not, that's a garbage. This is garbage. We spent so many years like writing reviews in ways that would try to not allow for that type of stuff to happen. But the thing I realized, you know, after years and years of doing it, is that those are such bad faith arguments that these people are approaching these situations with, that it was never worth the time we put into, oh, we've got to edit this review so that it's bulletproof, so that no one can come in and accuse you of this or this or that. It's like, no, because they're going to make shit up no matter what. It was a waste of fucking time. Like, people who aren't not part of that fucking weird forum subculture of fucking garbage dump humanity that are, you know, arguing about fucking reviews of video games and Xbox versus PlayStation or whatever the fuck else that they did for all those years. And it's still happening. I mean, like, it still happens. It's just, it's extra fucking stupid in the world of social media. But, you know, I'm talking about the time I spent reviewing games for GameSpot for that, you know, 11 years there. Like, that shit was just fucking gross, and it was pointless, and it was aimless. And now it's like it's taken on a weird, nastier, like there's just an extra level of dumb happening there, but also like a weird, I don't know, I'd say like a level of grift to it all, but like, I don't know, it's interesting. But everything's like that now. Like, you know, I was talking about wrestling earlier, you know, like I don't really watch WWE anymore. I gave up on it around the beginning of the year. And, you know, I see kind of the social media clips and check out a segment here and there that way, just to kind of see what's up. And, you know, if there were things happening there that I wanted to see, I would watch those shows, but there's just not. And, but like there are, for as much as I talk about how like video game discourse is garbage, like wrestling discourse is like 1 trillion times worse. It's so fucking stupid. It's so stupid. You just look at it and it's insane. Like these people just, you look at it and go like this a human being can't possibly think this way, right? Like this has to be, but they're just like, if they are real people, they're doing it to fucking win an argument on fucking Twitter, because they still post to Twitter for some reason. And, you know, it's just like the most garbage fucking bend over backwards to fucking make things fit whatever narrative about whatever company. And like, this man didn't blink for 43 seconds during this press conference because he's on cocaine. Like, kids, you have never been around anyone that's been on cocaine in your life ever, have you? If you think Tony Khan's on cocaine, are you 11? Maybe. Just fucking bizarre. Just straight up fucking crazy. So you're like, why are we even fucking talking about this? Yes, please regale me with tales of how television ratings work. It's fucking insane. Like music, you know, music coverage in its own weird way is is harder because, I think, again, because music is so personal, that in some ways it facilitates that sort of behavior, but in other ways I think that behavior becomes much easier to ignore because it happens in some pocket of the internet over somewhere else where people are like, I fucking love this artist and we're going to talk about this. And it used to feel like it was just like the pop stars. Like it was just like, oh, well, I don't know. People really like Taylor Swift and Beyonce or whatever. But like now it's like, there's just a weird thing. And there's a huge gap where like music media doesn't really exist at a grand scale anymore. And I think movie stuff sort of happened. I think a lot of the kind of movie review establishment vanished in a lot of ways too. And I think, what we're seeing it happen with games too. And it's a shame because I do think like video game reviews are in some ways poised. Like I think that they're the last reviews that matter because a movie is 3 hours, a TV show, you can watch one episode of it and decide if you want to keep going or not. An album is an hour. If you listen to a bad album, as someone who cares about music to a certain extent, like when I listen to a bad album, I leave it going like, oh man, like it doesn't necessarily feel like wasted time most of the time. It just feels like wow. I have very different thoughts about that than I thought I was going to, because this is fucking awful or whatever. Right. Video games are long and expensive. Video games, you are all in on the purchase price of said game, right? And so, especially as video games go up to $80, I think there are real opportunities for, video game reviews to be meaningful for people and helpful for people. Now, a lot of that gets mitigated and chopped down by just the way the world is now, right? Because you've got all these opportunities to try a game in some kind of beta form or whatever. Like, oh, we did an open beta for this and you can check it out, or, hey, this game's in early access and Steam has a decent refund policy or whatever. But like, if you're making an investment for like, I'm going to spend 20 hours on this game and it's $80, is that good? Should I do that? Yes or no? It would be nice to have someone like in the middle of all this who can kind of just tell me some shit about this game, who is not coming at it from like, well, I was on the official Discord and they said it's going to be the best. They said it's going to be the greatest game, so you should buy it because it's going to be the greatest game. Like having actual fucking humanity in the middle of this to say like, dude, this game's kind of fucked up. Or, hey, this game has some great elements to it, but there are certainly some issues, and like there's technical problems, or hey, there's artistic problems. Like movies don't often have technical problems. Games are somewhat unique in that way. But like it doesn't work like that as much anymore, and I think that there is something to be said for, here's an opportunity for you to try it for yourself. And I think, Ultra What says there's more faux outrage over a game when a game is totally fine. You're right. Yeah, there has been a weird turn negative in a lot of stuff as well. And that is algorithmically driven. And that is something that happens because you've got people that are trying to make money on platforms. And when you've got an algorithm that rewards people saying the fucking most hardline, outrageous fucking horse shit in the world, you're going to get people that go out there and they're going to say, don't buy. What you need to know before buying this game is that it's dog shit. It's the fucking worst thing in the world. And the Switch 2 is a piece of horrible shit. And Nintendo really fucked us on this one. Like using the most extreme language they can come up with, because if it bleeds, it leads, holds true for a fucking video game console just as easily as it does for just about anything else. And that algorithm has really, and that is also, I mean, not to keep drawing parallels to wrestling, but that is like fucking the disgusting violence in this AEW broadcast should be banned from television, and no one should be allowed to see this man pulled out a pizza cutter on live television. It's disgusting. And because they know that people will click on that video and go like, fuck this guy, what is this? And it'll play. And video games saw that, have seen that for years. And I think they saw that even before the algorithm was specifically designed to reward the fucking most outrageous horse shit in the world, right? Because video games, you had a lot of people trafficking in, and we, this is, I kind of talk about it a little bit when we're reviewing and ranking 8-bit Nintendo games, that there has been a cottage industry of people over the years who have like made their bones on like, I'm the guy who's mad at games. Me? I'm irate about this. And I'm going to tell you why. And my whole character is that I don't like this thing. And I think that shit sucks. I think those people fucking like, I think it's stupid. It's embarrassing. And you have people that were doing that before like all of YouTube was built around it, right? And now you're in a situation where certainly all of Twitter is built around that. All whatever's left of Twitter is built around, being maximally fucking garbage. And YouTube is exactly the same way, and I think that like you get faced with an issue here of just like, okay, you're either gonna like grow up and grow out of it as a person and try to pivot into something real, which in a lot of ways it's kind of too late, or not, but like the idea, like the way that stuff operates is like that type of behavior is rewarded because that's the type of shit people click on. I mean, you can blame the algorithm all you want, but also blame human nature. This is our fault. This is us. We click on this shit. Like, yes, YouTube definitely fucking like shoves it in your face a lot more, but the reason the algorithm rewards it is because they have the science to back it up and say, actually it turns out this is, for as much as people say they want to see like normal people talk about fucking video games, it turns out they want to click on the fucking most extreme horse shit imaginable. And then some percentage of them are going to agree with it and go on to become actual dipshit monsters down the line. But this is us, man. It's depressing, isn't it? That was always it's a similar argument when people are like, I can't believe these clickbait headlines. People click on them. If they didn't work, do you think that people would still write them that way? Like us, someone wrote a headline that made people want to read a thing. Now, I think that there are cases in there that are way too far. Just like I think, there are legitimate cases for that type of headline construction on YouTube or whatever as well. But you have people that went too far with it, right? I'm of the mind that headlines should be pretty upfront about the thing they're talking about. Especially in a case of just like you see, blank company announces release date for video game. Like, dude, the thing I always wanted to do is be able to write a 1-sentence news story and publish it on the website. This game is coming out on this day. Done. That's it. Now you have the information. That's it. That's it. I didn't write 3 paragraphs about like, oh, well, in order for Google to like this page more, there needs to be 3 paragraphs on it. So I'm going to write about the game, which is a first-person shooter of the Battle Royale variety, was confirmed and announced back at Summer Games Fest 2021. And this is... Blah, 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 blah. Like, you have to write so much fucking preamble and all this other shit to get your 1 sentence out there that, of course, you're going to not put the date in the headline. Because you got to turn pages at some point. It's disgusting. It's like it is what it is. But it's a fucking bummer, man. the whole like, you know, and the way that stuff floats to social media of just like here's a website posting its stories to the internet, and so you just see the headline and not the thing. It's like, dog, this tweet could have had the date in it. There's plenty of characters left here. I mean, I understand the business reasons that prevented you from doing that, and you know that it's a shitty situation and we all live under this nightmarish fucking hellscape, and yeah, sure, but also fuck man it's a fucking bummer. Anyway, I hope that answers your question about why Lupe Fiasco is corny. Dante, thanks for writing in. Yasir from Toronto says, would you buy the URL haze.com? It's currently for sale and the seller wants $500,000 for it. No, I would not pay $500,000 for haze.com. I would not pay $500,000 for any domain. Who goes to domains? How many domains do you go to other than guard.bike and gamescum.com? The last domain you'll ever need to visit, gamescum.com. I like domains. They're fun. But what do you point them to anymore? Did the WordPress guy ever like stand down and be less crazy? I don't think he did. I was all set up. I was going to I got time for me to host a WordPress blog and have a centralized location to talk about all my stuff. And then I was like, oh, certainly not doing that. But I don't know what I'm going to set up in its place. I'm going to get a Drupal going. We'll start selling. No, I don't know. I saw an interview with that dude that he is very much not stood down from his shit. Have I looked at Ghost? Ghost is, I could maybe like self-host Ghost. But as I am already on Patreon at patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann, Ghost is kind of set up to be a little bit of a different kind of payment flow and all that other stuff that I don't want to deal with. And so yeah, I could set up Ghost as a there's like stuff you could do, but every time I look at Ghost, it just seems like a little bit more than I need that will create more administrative work on my part to make it all go. And that is why there is no centralized website for any of this stuff. Also, because Patreon is now like serving, when you post publicly on Patreon, they serve that to people who don't follow you, which, you know, if you're in that flow already, is something that theoretically might bring people to the Patreon. And so I try to post public posts there as well from time to time. The whole infrastructure is a disaster. There's no good single solution. There's no good single solution for that sort of stuff. And I wish there was a better way. In fact, I have like a bunch of ideas about what Patreon should actually be doing from a product perspective. As someone who's built a bunch of websites, that I'm just like, oh man, if Patreon could let you white label this and do this and do this, and you know, if their CMS was better here, and here, and their podcast flow was better here, they've updated it and fixed some stuff, but it's not quite what it needs to be, and there's this, and yeah. David from Texas writes in and says, I stole this question from the socials because it's a fun one. Within 30 minutes at your home, on how many devices could you have the original Super Mario Brothers up and running? 30 minutes, huh? Okay. 1, 2. Well, it runs natively on the Switch, So even my legitimate switches could do that. Let's see. Analog Pocket. There's this thing. My phones. I have like a handful of phones. Yeah, it would take me longer to copy stuff over and get it up and running and install it than like I would run out. Yeah, I would run out of time before I would run out of platforms. But if I remove the time constraint, I think somewhere between 25 and 35, if I had to guess, devices in this house that could run Super Mario Brothers. Oh, no, well, yeah, because there's 2 Steam Decks, there's 3 Nintendo Switches, 4 Nintendo Switches. 1, 2, 3 PCs, 4 PCs. We'll count the laptop. There's 2 other laptops here that are older but would still do it. So that's 2 more laptops. There's I have a bunch of old phones. So if I could juice up all those phones and have time, like I have probably 7 or 8 phones here alone that I could probably run that on. I've got an Analog Pocket. I've got, yeah, a lot, it turns out. Josh from Mahoney Bay, Nova Scotia. Mahone Bay? Mahoney Bay. Writes in and asks, with all the options now available on the market, like the Switch 1, Switch 2, Steam Deck, OLED, Asus, ROG, Ally, etc., and seemingly more coming to market, I have to wonder how many handhelds a consumer household will realistically invest in before getting sick of owning too many devices. Do you think there will be a critical mass reached sooner rather than later for these devices? Will we eventually see hardware developers prioritize towards a more traditional, non-screen, non-handheld console? No, so, the thing to remember is that theoretically, the majority of these handheld devices will be able to be hooked up to a television. And so if you're the sort of person who wants it on a TV, you'll be able to get it there. And a lot of these PCs are PCs. And so you could just get a PC if you want to have something on a big screen or a proper screen. And you could hook a PC up to a television if that's your thing. And so I don't necessarily think that people will reach a critical mass on handheld devices, but also people aren't going to buy a billion of these things. Generations will change and shift, but like once this space is kind of normalized ever so slightly, and it's already pretty much there, but because all this stuff is so new, you're going to buy a thing and maybe you're going to want another thing down the line or whatever sooner than you might otherwise. People won't need to own a Steam Deck and a ROG Ally. You'll get one or you'll get the other, right? You won't need multiples of those unless there's multiple people in your house and then you're passing them down or you're doing, whatever you're doing with them. But right now, because all of this stuff is new, I think you have more people, at least vocal people. The numbers aren't there. Like we're not talking about zillions of, like the install base for the entire sector, discounting Nintendo because it's a proprietary platform. But if we talk about the entire sector of handheld PCs, it's not a massive, huge number. It's this sort of more hardcore person who right now, because all this shit is so new, are going to be a little more inclined to go like, oh yeah, I bought a Steam Deck and then I bought a Steam Deck OLED. And it's great. But also I am interested in getting an Ally or an Ally X, or let's see what the Xbox Ally ends up being, or like that's the boat I'm in right now. Is I am very interested in the Xbox Ally because I want to see what they will bring to it beyond just having an Xbox guide button on the unit, right? Like what do they do? And is that stuff that they probably just bring to Windows 11 in a general sense? I assume so. But what do they do alongside it? I think that stuff is what is interesting to me. But that thing's going to be expensive. All these things are expensive. Like, I think right now you could say that the base level kind of original model of Steam Deck that they're now selling and kind of blowing out a little bit for like $300 or whatever it is, like, that's a pretty good price at this point for what you get in terms of what it can run and whatever. You know, you're ending up with suboptimal storage space and whatever else along the way, but like, that's, you know, hey. But like in a normal scenario, you're going to have one of those things if you have one at all. If you want one, you will get one and you will be done with that. And you will wait for a generational shift. You will wait for the ROG Ally 2, the Steam Deck 2, the Steam Deck 3, whatever, you know, you'll wait for something where they will have to figure out what's the proper cadence for iterating on these devices. Because right now, I think the difference between the original ROG Ally and the Ally X and some of the stuff they've done there, I don't think that's a great, I don't think that's an awesome like price point. It's $399 for that base level Steam Deck, which is not $300. That's more like $400. But for that, you get a 256 gigabyte LCD model of the Steam Deck. And it's Wi-Fi 5, whereas the OLEDs have 6E. So, you know. And it's a 60 hertz refresh rate, whereas the OLEDs go up to 90. The screen on the OLED is ever so slightly bigger, just under half an inch bigger. But like, you know, if you want to get into this space and want to have something like this, like that's, I would say a fairly reasonable price. They've had refurbs also, I think, where they've been slightly cheaper than that. I don't see those immediately. Oh yeah, certified refurbished, save up to 20%. Okay, they don't currently have any refurbs in stock, but the price on a 1 terabyte OLED that's been refurbed is $519. A half terabyte OLED is $439. Which for $439, I mean, that's within spitting distance of the base level Steam Deck anyway. So, you know, that's a, like, that thing's $550 normally. If you can get one for $439, hell, that's a pretty solid price. And as we see more competition from more devices hitting the market, like, you know, we'll kind of see where this all goes, right? I think that, you know, this is a nascent market. I think everyone sees the potential in it, which is why you see Microsoft, like, you know, if not bending over backwards, like they're going to have to move heaven and earth to get Windows 11 to be a good OS for this shit. And we'll see if they get there. But I think everyone sees the value there as like, hey, this is a really cool and interesting form factor. People seem satisfied with the power here. Like, it's not going to have Nintendo's first party stuff, so it's really hard to kind of classify it in the same realm as the Switch, because I think the value proposition is so dramatically different. And if you really care about that first party stuff, like a lot of the indie games that, you know, you get, you know, on a Steam Deck, like a lot of that stuff comes to the Switch as well. You know, we do see these cases of like, oh, our game is coming to PC and Switch. You're like, what? That's a weird combo. It's not that weird of a combo anymore. And so the Switch is like actually like a viable competitor in that space, even if you don't care about their first party stuff, which I think would be weird. I think the open nature of a PC is, to me, dramatically worth it in that. So, you know, like to me, the value of a Switch 2 is primarily its first party output or exclusive output, you know, generally. But yes, at the end of the day, like, you know, no one's going to buy 7 of these things at once. No one's going to sit around with a table full of them and go, ha ha ha, I have all of these. once we get settled. But all of this stuff is still so new and weird, and it's just, you know, if you have some people that can afford that shit that are out there buying 5 different things, and like I bought that ROG thinking that I was going to replace a Steam Deck with it, and then immediately brought it back to the store because I did not like it at all. And you know, it had very specific hardware issues. But yeah, you know, we'll see how it all pans out. I mean, you know, we could have been in a scenario where Windows 11 never gets to where it needs to be for this to be an easy and smooth enough experience for the commoner, the normal person, the regular person who doesn't want to dick around, which is a very noble place to be, I think. If you just want something that is like reliable and works, to which I say, you realize these things run Windows, right? All right. Let's hope for the best. But like none of these devices are there yet. We talk about it all the time. Like none of these devices, like SteamOS is a really great experience. In the pantheon of these devices right now, SteamOS is the closest we have gotten to having that experience, but even that's not quite there. Partially because it's based on Linux, and so you'll run into situations where people will be confused as to why their games won't run or whatever. But you're going to run into that a little bit no matter what, because it's a PC. And we'll see where it gets to. I wonder, you know, like, do you think, I don't know, you know, like I would be interesting to see Valve, and this I think goes against Valve's interests in a way that, you know, they'd probably never do it, but like it does solve the problem of like, what if Valve shipped a device that ran Windows? Because then you could play games with anti-cheat on it and not have to worry about Proton. I think it's more likely that they will continue to invest in Proton, and I think that's the smart thing for their future. And the hope is that end of things gets big enough that developers come around and say, we've got to figure out a way to make these games work on Linux. Cantong One says, you can install Windows on a Steam Deck, though. Yeah, I can install anything on anything. My point is that there are people who don't want to do that. That there are people who won't know how to do that. That won't even have the first idea about how to make that happen. And that is where these devices need to get to truly break through. Is they need to be something that anyone can pick up and go, this just works. And I don't have to like jump in here and set a bunch of screen settings. I don't have to install a plugin to limit frame rate and go like, well, if I want my battery to save, I need to limit the frame rate to this and do this. Like, no. That stuff needs to, like, not go away. I think that stuff is incredibly valuable and rad. But the baseline out-of-the-box experience needs to run the games people want to play. And it needs to be very easy to use. They want to pick it up. They want to turn it on. They want to launch a game. Done. And none of this stuff is there yet. And maybe it never gets there and this remains a nascent small thing, and, you know, and Nintendo, you know, just laughs it off and goes, yeah, that's funny when you guys are making all that shit. Fun for nerds. These fucking nerds out here plugging a keyboard into their fucking thing. Yeah, nice. Our thing has 2 built-in mice. Nerd. And then Nintendo will grab your underwear and pull it up your butt crack. And you will go, oh man. And then they'll brick your console and laugh about it. Let's see here. Michael from New Jersey wants to know what I think about the new Clips album. It's very good. I I think the good tracks on it are incredibly good. There are some that I think are a little more forgettable than others, and but yeah, I think there's some really great shit on there. I think like Pharrell's production is still fantastic, and he's still really good at that shit. Yes, they did a Tiny Desk performance, which the clips the clips of clips playing on the Tiny Desk thing are really funny, because there's like a specific part of what is it, Chains and Whips, where Push is talking about Jim Jones of all people. First person to remind you that Jim Jones still exists. But like in this Tiny Desk performance, because it's like it's a live show, you know, they got a band there, and it's, you know, they're doing their thing. He just looks so fucking happy to be fucking spitting these bars about Jim fucking Jones and how much of a fucking punk ass he is. He's just like staring directly into the camera, just smiling the whole time. It's fucking like, you diabolical motherfucker. It's so fucking good, man. Yeah, that's a good record. That's a good record. I don't, you know, there's some stuff on it that like I think is like well-made songs that I don't necessarily want to like listen to 10 times or anything like that. I think it's good as an album. There's like 6 tracks or something that I will like pull out and put onto playlists and whatever else. And that's probably how I will listen to most of it going forward. But yeah. Grant writes in and says, so Death Stranding 2 released. Did anyone notice 25 years ago this would have been a major event? Grant, I think you could chalk that up to, yes, a lot of people noticed that Death Stranding 2 came out. You're right that it maybe wasn't the like major event that a big release like that would have been 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or whatever, but nothing is anymore, right? I like the release of Halo Infinite. It's a new Halo game, didn't attract that sort of the same sort of like buzz or whatever. But yeah, people were very excited for the release of Death Stranding 2. I don't see a ton of talk about it anymore. It feels like, but like also I think a lot of people played it and finished it or are working their way through it and are happy with it, or they're not. And it kind of, yeah, like people move on to the next thing when it comes to discussing games and whatever else. But yeah, I think people are still working their way through it. I saw people praising Troy Baker quite a bit the other day, and his work in it. Let's see here. Kyle and Austin, kind of, if we talked about what the, like if all these manufacturers are making things that can be called Xbox, what does that mean for the Xbox brand and control over the Xbox brand or whatever? And if they're just meeting a spec or whatever. And Kyle says, I can't help but feel like we've seen the spec machine type thing tried before with the 3DO. Will Microsoft be more successful, or will they, like 3DO, ultimately focus solely on software, releasing their own yearly Army Man games until fading into irrelevancy? I think that Microsoft is in control of properties that are more popular than Army Men has ever been. Maybe Portal Runner. So yeah, but like that was that was kind of the idea of 3DO out of the gate, was to have other companies be allowed to manufacture hardware. The CDI did the same thing. I mean, there are Saturns out there there's like a Hitachi Saturn, right? There's weird stuff out there, and mostly in Japan. But that's the danger, right? Of like giving up control of your own closed box and your own closed ecosystem It will impact, something around the percentage that they get from sales of games. It will impact their level to kind of control what types of games appear on their system, which they don't have a heavy hand on, but they do have a hand on it. I think there are risks involved in that approach for sure. But I just don't see a world in which enough people want another Xbox. I think that's where I sit with it, is like, I just look at it and go like, it's the way people talk about Xbox these days, the way that those games ship or don't ship. It's hard to imagine them just going down the same path another time. When you look at how this generation went, or has been going for them, I guess I should say, of like, the Xbox Series S like did something, like it helped, kind of having a lower priced console and whatever. You also see some developers complain a little bit about having to support low end hardware, but like that's going to be the norm because they're going to be doing this multi-platform stuff, and they'll want their games on the Switch too. They will want their games on whatever these weird handheld PCs are, if enough of them sell, and so they'll have to do that work either way. But yeah, I think the question becomes like, in a world where the Xbox brand is really just a spec and really just a badge, what level of control does Microsoft exert over hardware manufacturers in order to get that branding? If you want to call your thing an Xbox, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And you have to meet those standards in order for this to be referred to as something that can natively run locally Xbox games. If you want to be a cloud device, then, whatever, man. Do you have a screen and an internet connection? Fuck it, you're an Xbox. But like the real shit going forward, like what is that going to look like, is something that I think that they'll have to figure out if that's truly the path they're going to go down. And I still think that's what it looks like. I haven't seen anything, too compelling indicating that it wouldn't be that. I think that they've been signaling as much about the freedom of Windows and all of that stuff. But ultimately, like they don't need to go get the, like if you wanted to, like it's just a PC with Windows installed, and there's already a path for those things to exist without Microsoft having a heavy hand on it. So if you don't need any, like if and maybe Microsoft limits some features to, officially branded Xboxes, which I think would be a huge mistake, but maybe that's where they try to add value to the partnership. It's like, oh, you get access to the backwards compatibility stuff and whatever, and you only get that if you're a certified Xbox, which means I'm downloading fucking like Vive Tool or whatever and turning on feature flags until I get that on my unlicensed fucking Xbox. I don't know what the fucking thing is, but who knows? Who fucking knows? I think there are a zillion different ways for them to make mistakes based on them trying to hold on to something in this process instead of just saying, all right, we're going to have hardware guidance here, but make a thing that runs games and put our storefront on it, please. Oh God. I mean, our storefront's pre-installed, so lucky us. It's Windows, so at least we can still control the OS. Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's see here. Kev from Preston in the United Kingdom writes in and says, let's say we have the power to bring these games back from the past and add 16-player online. Would you say yes or no to these following games? And I'll tell you up front, my answer is yes to all of them, because you should just make more games. There should be more games, not less. But okay, let's play. Road Rash, Burnout 3, Time Splitters, Red Faction 2, and Worms. Yeah, and he says like Worms like Battle Royale. I says I know Worms Battle Royale was never a thing, but now that I mention it, it sounds amazing, with each of the 16 players controlling one worm to survive. Sure, yeah, they should just make all those. Yeah, I mean, do I think that those would all be financial successes? Not necessarily. Do I think any of them would be? Maybe not. I think a 16-player online time splitters would hold a very specific appeal, but not an appeal that would necessarily shake things up dramatically. I think Red Faction 2 would be, that'd be kind of cool. Burnout 3 with 16 hey, just turn the Burnout 3 servers back on. It doesn't have to be 16 player. Just make it 6 or whatever it was. Like, that's fine too. 6 or 8 or whatever the limit was. Multiplayer Road Rash, I think, would be cool, or has the potential to be cool. Beating each other with chains, racing bikes, all that shit. And a big multiplayer Worms game. Why not? They've done that. They've been like 4-player or something, but you could do 16. It would just take forever. It being a turn-based game, waiting for 15 other players to take their Worms turns before you get to go, sounds excruciating. So I don't know that I would go for that, but sure, they should. Why not make those games? We're just about you. So I think this game is about to resurface. Speaking of Burnout, the game from Three Fields Entertainment, which is Alex Ward, who was, I believe, one of the founders of Criterion, and some of his crew who made like Dangerous Golf and Dangerous Racing and some of that other stuff. They have been working on a game called Recreation, Rec with a W. They've been working on a driving game called Recreation that THQ Nordic was on the hook to publish, and they put out a trailer and said, "Hey, we're publishing this thing." And then the game kind of vanished for a very, like there has not been frequent updates about what the hell is happening with Recreation, to the point that I was like, is this game been canned? What the heck's going on? But THQ is about to do an event here, I think in a couple of weeks. Digital showcase on August 1st. That's my birthday. And I believe they have kind of tipped their hand a little bit and said that Recreation will be there in some form, will be shown there in some form. So it sounds like that game is still alive. I hope to see it. I want to see what that team's been working on. That they've always been like, it felt like that they've been building towards trying to make a next big crazy driving game, and Dangerous Driving was neat, and Dangerous Golf is neat. They've made a lot of neat stuff that was kind of funky in a couple of ways. You're like, this is almost really good, but it's kind of not there. And they made some stuff that had kind of some Burnout Crash mode stuff in it, and I mean, Dangerous Golf is kind of just Burnout Crash mode, but you're a golf ball. In a weird way. But it sounded like the goal was to always get back to making something bigger, and Recreation seems like it is something bigger than the games that Three Fields has been making up to this point. And so I'm very hopeful. I hope that thing ends up being cool, because the trailer when they announced it looked neat, and we'll kind of see. We'll see what happens there. Let's see. I think that might be it for us. Let me let's take one more question here. I think this question's a little premature. Let's talk about it. CJ from Nashville asks, where do Xbox players go now? I know there's been a lot of talk about the direction of Xbox the last few months. I was hoping to get your advice as to what to do for someone like me who's been using Xbox as their primary console for nearly 20 years. For the record, I also own a PS5 and Switch. I just have used my Xbox as my go-to console. I've been using it since Xbox Live launched, primarily because it was the most consistent online service of all the main consoles. When Xbox One came out, I stuck with the ecosystem on my friends list, even though it seemed to be the weaker console. I was all in on Game Pass and all that stuff. My question is, what do you suggest someone like me does now? Like, I'm excited for the idea of getting an open console where I could theoretically have access to my huge library and get the Sony first-party games on delay, but do I need to start worrying about my back catalog of games? I have more games than I can count from the years of games with gold and picking things up on holiday sales. If you were in my position, would you keep investing in this ecosystem, or should I start investing more in PlayStation? I travel a lot for work, so the Xbox Ally seems like the perfect device for someone like me, but I can't help but get scared that all this might go the way of the Zune at some point. Yikes. We don't know yet. So CJ, I say it's premature because I think that, you know, you kind of need to know some things about Microsoft's strategy that they haven't really confirmed. I can sit here and I can try to connect the dots on the stuff they've said so far and try to assume what they're going to do, but that's ultimately that's what I'm doing here is looking at what they said and saying like, this seems like they're headed in this direction, and that could be a cool direction. And so as I see it looking like a cool direction, I look at it and go like, yeah. Redfish says, am I crazy, or didn't Xbox announce a partnership with AMD and said they're making a next-gen console? So yes, but also the other part of that is they talked about, again, there's that line there about the freedom of Windows. So are they just going to be making PCs? Is the console that they eventually make just going to be an open-ended device that you can install Steam on and run Big Picture on? Or, you know, like are you going to be able to install the Epic Store on this thing and play Fortnite that way? Like, how is that going to work? And what will they do about backwards compatibility? Like, if that's the direction they're truly going in, Windows 11 today does not run Xbox 360 games, original Xbox games, Xbox One games, and Xbox Series games. Not without some outside the lines software, let's say, because you can certainly play original Xbox games, Xbox 360 games, and you know there's some efforts to play Xbox One games, which is kind of weird and crazy, but very interesting. But like in an official capacity, what will they do to support you and your catalog and your investment in these games over the years? What will they do to ensure that you still get to play that library? Because if they do all this and make this big shift in this direction, but then also say like, oh yeah, if you want to play any of these games, you can only play them in the cloud, and there's a subset of games that are going to be unavailable because for weird technical reasons we can't get into. And like, if the only option is, oh yeah, you can still play Unreal Championship 2, you can just do it in the cloud now. That's not an acceptable solution. And so I think that stuff is remains to be seen. I think when they kind of tip their hand and say, here's what we're doing about old games on our next generation of devices, then you'll have what you need to know in order to make that decision. I think that they have been their backwards compatibility team. I remember having a conversation with someone over there that is probably fucking 10 years ago now. Certainly more than 6 years ago. Well, I guess this was in the run up to the release of the series consoles, right? I guess that's when that conversation had to have taken place. So this is probably like 2019 or something now that I think about it. 2018 maybe. And like talking to them about the different possibilities of the things they were building in backwards compatibility, and you know, they didn't come right out and say, hey, we're going to make this shit run on Windows. But definitely like the vibe of the conversation was like, yeah, there's a lot of things we can do, and there's a lot of things that we're going to need, you know. And at the time I was like, oh shit, they're going to do it. They're going to pull the trigger on making these things run on Windows. And they have not. So I maybe misread part of that conversation, but also that stuff to me just kind of seems like a good idea and something that they should probably do. How you do it with physical media, I think it's very tricky, because the minute you start saying like, we're going to sell an external Blu-ray drive that you can plug into your PC, and this has the needed stuff to read security sectors and read the discs the way they need to be read, and read them securely to make them so you can't copy them, or you know, and install demon tools and then play 50 Cent Blood on the Sand. No, I don't know. Like it's just sort of a weird. There's weird missing pieces in all of this because some of this stuff is still years away, right? So I think that again, it's premature. I find it hard to believe that they would walk away from their backwards compatibility story, considering how much they've leaned on that over the years and how much they've used that as like we really care about you and you're at the center of this experience and we honor this. And like that has become a pretty core part of their message. And so if they do end up going all in on Windows-based devices and they do end up opening up the platform, they will have to figure out a way to do that, I would think. Or, there's always the other side of it, right? They've been taking it on the chin with a lot of very tough messages lately about the Xbox ecosystem, but hey, all these games are going to appear on PlayStation now, by the way. And hey, yeah, our next systems are maybe they're going to run Windows. I don't know. Like there's so maybe they take another tough message and say this is the breaking point for backwards compatibility. And if you own a game and it is Xbox Play Anywhere, and we're going to take everything we can and make it Xbox Play Anywhere, then you'll be able to download the PC version of it from our store for no additional fee. And maybe that ends up being the direction they go in, right? But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I would like to think that they would continue to honor the full kind of promise of backwards compatibility, the way they have been doing it, because I think there are console-only games that get left in the dust on that. A 50 Cent Blood on the Sand, for example. But we'll see. Yeah, maybe they do it for Xbox One apps because those are just UWP apps, and they could, like people are out there doing it in shady ways today, right? So maybe they say, oh, Xbox One stuff is going to run, but anything further back than that, if there's a PC version, you'll get it as part of Xbox Play Anywhere within as long as it's first party and we can control it. But they can't make old THQ rise from its grave and give you a way to run 50 Cent Blood on the Sand in this day and age. It just simply cannot happen for business reasons. So yeah, maybe they end up disappointing on that front. It's certainly possible. That's gonna do it for the show. Thanks everybody for listening. I will be back next Tuesday and we'll talk about video games right here. If you want an ad-free version of the show, patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann is the place to be. You get a bonus podcast over there. You get an ad-free version of this weekly show, and more. I am putting together footage for a thing that will debut on the Patreon in the relatively near future. It is a bigger task than I thought it was going to be, but I am pulling it together as I can. And I'll also be back tomorrow to play some stuff. So come on through. I'll see you then. Bye.